The Otsutsuki Road from Kirigakure chapters 597 to 624. Otsutsuki Momoshiki followed his crazy warning instinct and subconsciously tilted his head, skillfully avoiding the slash of light fang. However, he still broke out in a cold sweat because of Qingxi's sudden attack. At such a close distance, he could clearly sense the terrifying power of light fang that had been compressed to the extreme. That is an attack force that is powerful enough to ignore ordinary defenses and even cause damage to yin-yang escaped creatures. This can be seen from the fact that the red long sword in his hand, which was made by the Wei God, using yin-yang chakra, was cut off by one blow. Even though Momoshiki had great confidence in his body's defense after the transformation, he still didn't want to, nor did he dare, take such a blow head-on. But immediately afterwards, Momoshiki couldn't suppress the surge of ecstasy in his heart. For him, if Qingxi continued to use physical skills to fight him, although he still had the confidence that he could achieve the final victory, judging from the fighting power displayed by Qingxi, this would be an extremely difficult and long battle. But now, the other party actually used ninjutsu in front of him. Although he could sense that there were other things mixed into Qingxi's technique, and the speed at which it was launched was such that even he, after his transformation, might be caught in the trap if he was not careful. But his bloodline ability, High Emperor Spiritual Master, is aimed at this kind of situation. All the techniques are based on chakra, and Gao Wangchen Lingzhen can not only absorb all of it, but also give the opponent a super double and hit it back. It can be described as an epic enhanced version of give and take. Therefore, even though Otsutsuki Momoshiki was not aware that the technique performed by Seiji was not an ordinary ninjutsu but a fairy technique, the fairy technique chakra was also within the absorption range of Gao Wangchen Ray Zone. It really played into his hands. However, Qingxi was of course well aware of this. From Ashiki's memory and the information provided by Kagaya, he can say that he has basically understood the abilities possessed by Otsutsuki Momoshiki. Therefore, this magic technique was naturally another trap set by Qingxi for Momoshiki. Senjutsu, lava release, Rasenshuriken. The technique that Qingxi learned from the so-called Child of Destiny, Naruto Uzumaki in a parallel universe was now used by him with extraordinary ease. Then, I saw a bright red light rushing past like lightning. It was like a cluster of fiercely burning flames, emitting heart-pounding heat and energy. While spinning rapidly, it whisked towards Otsutsuki Momoshiki, who was quickly retreating and trying to create distance, but had not yet gotten too far. For a moment, sharp and piercing buzzing sounds exploded one after another in the air. Sensing the terrifying chakra contained in the Rasenshuriken and the horrifying fluctuations it emanated, Otsutsuki Momoshiki's face subconsciously became solemn, but at the same time he couldn't help but feel secretly happy in his heart. Hey, isn't it a coincidence? Isn't it? Momoshiki was fantasizing happily in her mind. He seemed to have seen it. After he used Gao Wangchen Lingzhen to absorb the spiral shuriken, and then returned it to Qingxi in double the amount, Qingxi's face revealed the uncontrollable fear and panic. It's too late to say, then soon. As the air in front of Momoshiki vibrated rapidly due to friction, the bright red spiral shuriken was already approaching. But, Gao Wangchen Lingzhen, Momoshiki raised his right hand forward and instantly absorbed the spiral shuriken that was filled with hot magma in the center. Immediately, the next second, as Momoshiki swung his left hand vigorously in the direction of Kiyoshi, a lava ball that was almost twice the size of the spiral shuriken just now emerged from the Rinnegan in the palm of his hand and then shot out. Go to hell! Momoshiki showed a twisted yet satisfied sneer on his face, and shouted in his heart. However, Otsutsuki Momoshiki did not notice, or may have noticed but subconsciously ignored, the moment he threw the lava ball in his hand. Qingxi's lips seemed to tremble slightly, and the corners of his mouth were also drawn with an extremely indifferent, chilling, disdainful and sarcastic sneer. Senjutsu, lava release, Rasenshuriken. The Divine Emperor produces 10 times the Spiritual Lord. Qingxi performed the same move again. But this time, He directly added the maximum, God Emperor Spiritual Master, to it, and pulled the power that the spiral shuriken could burst out to the maximum. In Kiyoshi's opinion, even if this attack couldn't kill Otsutsuki Momoshiki instantly, it would definitely be enough to give him a good beating. Whoosh! Just the blink of an eye. The lava ball that Momoshiki absorbed from Kiyoshiki and counterattacked after amplifying its power collided with the spiral shuriken that Kiyoshiki had unleashed with 10 times the power. But the next moment, the power is wrong. Under Momoshiki's incredulous gaze, the lava ball was crushed by the Rasenshuriken without causing any ripples, and then swallowed and fused. Momoshiki's expression suddenly changed, no longer as arrogant and confident as before. At this moment, he vaguely realized that he seemed to have been tricked by Qingxi and fell into a huge trap. The other party actually possessed some ability to amplify the power of the spell, and the degree of its amplification was even greater than that of his, Gao Wangshanlingzhen. Although Qingxi had used Shenwangshanlingzhen when he killed Jinshiki instantly just now. But you have to know that the bloodline-enhancing ability of Spiritual Lord born by the Divine Emperor is directly added to the technique performed by Qingxi, and there is no other external manifestation. Therefore, although Momoshiki noticed the 80 Gods air attack that Seiji had just used, its power was incredibly great, and he also sensed the abnormal fluctuations in his pupil power. But he never thought that the reason why the power of 80 Gods aerial strike was far beyond ordinary was because it was blessed by the bloodline network ability of God Emperor born Spirit Lord, which could amplify the power of the technique. After all, during the fight between Qingxi and Jinshiki, the pupil powers of both sides mixed together, becoming chaotic and abnormally fluctuating, which was a perfectly normal situation. Moreover, the more important point is that the bloodline net ability of Shenwang Chanlingzhen, which only has auxiliary effects, simply amplifies the power of the technique, and can even be said to be completely born for attack, is the first time it has appeared in the long history of the Otsutsuki clan. Therefore, under the influence of the information gap, it is not surprising that Otsutsuki Momoshiki, who was arrogant to begin with and never took Kyoji, a wild Otsutsuki, seriously, was so easily calculated by Kyoji and fell into his trap. Then, at the moment when Momoshiki realized something was wrong, but had no time to react, or even use Gao Huangshan Lingzhen again, the spiral shuriken that crushed and devoured the lava ball, with unstoppable force, hit his body and swallowed him directly. Boom! Instantly, an extremely violent chakra storm erupted directly from the body of Otsutsuki Momoshiki, who was hit by the spiral shuriken, and then quickly spread to the surroundings in the next moment. The tenfold powerful Senjutsu, lava release, Rasenshuriken, directly set off a magnificent lava storm in midair. A huge vortex of lava was spinning rapidly in the air. The surrounding air was distorted under the extreme high temperature. Even the space was about to shatter under this terrifying power. Doomsday disaster. As the lava storm became more and more violent, everything it emitted was burned to ashes wherever it passed by the shock wave, and the ground below was melted into a sea of boiling magma. The already collapsed Kagaya Castle was melted away silently without attracting any attention. At this time, Otsutsuki Momoshiki also let out a series of extremely tragic and painful howls. The sound was sharp like a demon demanding his life, and it was creepy. To Momoshiki, it was as if he was in a boiling furnace at this moment. The blazing flames were like a violent beast, destroying his body. Every inch of his skin made a sizzling sound under the scorching flames. Waves of unbearable pain surged towards Otsutsuki Momoshiki like a tide. One strike and you're done. It can be said that Kiyoshiki's plan pinned Otsutsuki Momoshiki to the ground and rubbed him hard. After all, normally speaking, neither ninjutsu nor senjutsu are likely to pose a threat to Momoshiki, who possesses the Gao Huangshan Lingzun. But Momoshiki was hit hard by Kiyoshi's Senjutsu Laojutsu Rasenshuriken. It can only be said that for Otsutsuki Momoshiki, who only obtains power through chakra pills and chakra fruits and always relies on all numbers, no skills, to crush others with force in battle, he seems much weaker in front of a truly battle-hardened strong man. After all, most of the Otsutsuki clan only see power as a simple tool, and their strength is not acquired through long-term training like that of ninjas. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. However, Otsutsuki Momoshiki is still an Otsutsuki with some brains after all. The moment the lava storm engulfed him and he was struck by severe pain all over his body, Otsutsuki Momoshiki promptly activated his bloodline net ability, Gao Wangshan Lingzhen, and absorbed all the fairy chakra contained in Qingji's already exploded attack. However, just when Momoshiki was about to take advantage of the situation to launch a direct counterattack against Kiyoshi, Qingxi's next wave of attacks is here. And this time, Kiyoshi did not continue to use the technique that could be absorbed by Momoshiki's ability. Earth Explosion Star. As Kiyoshi clasped his hands together, a huge round stone sphere instantly wrapped up Otsutsuki Momoshiki. In addition, on the ground nearby, there were also pieces of lava that had just been affected by the aftermath but had not yet cooled down, and they were also sucked into the air one after another. A sharp light flashed in the golden eyes. Otsutsuki Momoshiki, who was at the center of the sphere, sensed the strength of Kiyoshi's Chibaku Tensai, and instantly decided to change his strategy. He first used the chakra he had just absorbed to quickly recover from the half-death state he was beaten half to death by Qingxi due to a moment of carelessness. Then, he gathered a large amount of chakra in one breath again, preparing to directly break the Chibaku Tensai. Dugai is good for life. A cold shout suddenly came from the center of Earth-shattering star. The next second, a thick dragon head suddenly emerged from the rock sphere and rushed towards Qingxi. Afterwards, several stone monsters with dragon heads and snake bodies, following Otsutsuki Momoshiki who broke through the Chibaku Tensai, launched a continuous and intensive attack on Seiji. Seeing this, Qingxi shook his head slightly. In his opinion, Otsutsuki Momoshiki has almost run out of tricks. This kind of attack is just intimidating in appearance. It may be okay to deal with ordinary ninjas, but it has no effect on him. Therefore, Qingxi, whose passion for fighting began to fade gradually, was now somewhat uninterested. It seems it's time to put an end to Otsutsuki Momoshiki. 80 Gods aerial attack. Countless huge chakra fists emerged from the void, and instantly destroyed all the dragon-headed snake-bodied monsters that Momoshiki had used up a lot of chakra to create. Immediately, the pixel-like space channel of Yomi Hirasaka opened, and Seiji took a step forward. When he reappeared, he was already right behind Otsutsuki Momoshiki. Heaven always establishes his respect. As the scarlet rinnegan in the center of his forehead flashed a faint light, time almost stopped for everything around Qingxi. Otsutsuki Momoshiki, who had lost the ability to stop time due to his transformation, was unsurprisingly frozen in place in an instant. Under Kiyoshi's deliberate calculation, the huge gap in information between the two sides made it impossible for Momoshiki to react at this moment, and he was unable to break free from Kiyoshi's control. Snapped. A crisp sound was heard, and Seiji's right palm slapped Otsutsuki Momoshiki's face heavily. In an instant, an unparalleled force like a volcanic eruption suddenly exploded on Otsutsuki Momoshiki's face, hitting his cheek directly and making it cave in, and then he flew backwards in a spin. Moreover, as his cheeks became sunken and deformed, Otsutsuki Momoshiki flew backwards and tumbled, and several bloody teeth suddenly spurted out and flew all over the air. Momoshiki's originally straight mouth became crooked because of this blow, and looked extremely miserable. It was Qingxi's taijutsu, a simple and unpretentious Otsutsuki slap. What? The moment Seiji took back the domain formed by Tenho Raizen, Otsutsuki Momoshiki broke free from the control and kept tumbling in the air, suddenly, realizing what had happened. At this moment, his face felt as if it had been burned by a hot iron. The burning pain quickly spread from the hit cheek to his entire head, making his ears buzz constantly. And when Otsutsuki Momoshiki barely stopped his backwards flying figure in midair, the part of his face that had just been slapped violently began to turn red, as if it had been dyed with some bright paint, forming a very sharp contrast with his pale skin. The clear slap marks and the outlines of the fingers, like red grooves, were imprinted on Otsutsuki Momoshiki's face, and were particularly eye-catching. It can be said, the damage is huge. The insult is even stronger. Otsutsuki Momoshiki's eyes, which had turned golden due to his transformation, now seemed to be stained with blood, filled with a bloody glow that could kill people. Endless and intense murderous intent surged like raging waves. Momoshiki's emotions were apparently exaggerated to the extreme of anger. Just like a lit powder keg, it was on the verge of exploding. She was no longer as arrogant and indifferent as she was at the beginning. Immediately, a fruit about half the size of a palm, emitting strange chakra fluctuations and constantly flashing dark red, appeared out of thin air as Momoshiki waved his hand. It was the duo of Momoshiki and Kinshiki who had completed the harvest half a year ago, but had not yet had time to hand over the chakra fruits of the sacred tree back to the tribe. Otsutsuki Momoshiki, who was already so angry at the slap from Seiji, was completely pleased with himself. At this critical moment of life and death, he no longer cared about the rules of the clan for a moment. Moreover, the hundreds of meters he had just flown backwards became his best cover, at this moment, allowing him to have enough time to swallow the chakra fruit before Chingxi. Then, next moment, Otsutsuki Momoshiki grabbed the emerging chakra fruit tightly and was about to put it directly into his mouth. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. The appearance of the chakra fruit made Chingxi's eyes flash with a gleam of light instantly, and he couldn't help but feel ecstatic in his heart. There is such a good thing. Kiyoshi never imagined that Otsutsuki Momoshiki actually carried with him a chakra fruit which, although not very strong, was indeed formed by the energy of an entire planet. It seems that this chakra fruit is destined for him and should belong to him. Then, just before Otsutsuki Momoshiki was about to swallow the chakra fruit in one gulp, the power of the Rinnegan in the center of Kiyoshi's forehead suddenly exploded. The bloodline of God Emperor's spiritual lord was directly activated in a moment. Samsaranga I. Pressure. The divine emperor produces 10 times the spiritual lord. An indescribably terrifying pressure descended in an instant. With the blessing of God Emperor Chan Lingzun, the power of the Samsara Eye caused Otsutsuki Momoshiki's movements to pause in an instant even at a distance of hundreds of meters. Afterwards, while Otsutsuki Momoshiki was in a state of stiffness, Seiji switched the target of Shinochin Ray Zone to Yomi Hirasaka, greatly increased the speed of the attack, and then leapt across the space channel at high speed and appeared in front of Otsutsuki Momoshiki in an instant. Bring it to you. With a sneer on his face, Chingxi raised his hand and looked at Momoshiki, who was holding the chakra fruit in his hand and had already brought it to his mouth. It was a Wanxiang Tianian. Moreover, in order to ensure that everything goes smoothly, Kiyoshi even activated Tenho Ryzen at the same time while using Wanxiang Tenyan to continuously control Otsutsuki Momoshiki. Of course, the blessing of 10 times the power of God Emperor's Spirit Lord is also indispensable. It can be said that in order to get the chakra fruit without any accidents, Chingxi has already used his full strength. This entire set of silky smooth combos was completed in no more than 1/10 of a second, so fast that Otsutsuki Momoshiki had not yet recovered from the shock of the Samsarangan coercion before he fell under the control of Tenho Ryzen again. And when Otsutsuki Momoshiki broke free from control, everything was settled. The chakra fruit fell into Chingxi's hands without any surprise. Followed by, before Otsutsuki Momoshiki could explode in impotent rage or wail in despair because his last hope was shattered, Kiyoshi took advantage of the situation and dodged, coming directly behind Otsutsuki Momoshiki. And in the palm of his free hand, a bone spur suddenly emerged, which was a strange grayish-white color and exuded a heart-pounding aura of annihilation. Next moment, there was no hesitation. Chingxi raised his hand forward, and the gray-white bone spur in his palm directly pierced into the back of Otsutsuki Momoshiki. Nizne. Chingxi's lips moved slightly, and a cold and harsh shout came out indifferently, without a trace of emotion, as if it came from the 9th nether hell, and went straight into Otsutsuki Momoshiki's ears. In an instant, Otsutsuki Momoshiki felt a breath of death, mixed with a deep chill, emerging from his spine, and instantly spreading and entwining his entire body, following him like a shadow, making him feel as if he was falling into an icy cave. Then, there was nothing more. Under the bloodline network ability, killing ash bones, Otsutsuki Momoshiki's body began to slowly collapse from the wound in the back of the heart, and gradually spread to the whole body. Then in a moment, without even having time to leave any last words, Otsutsuki Momoshiki was completely turned into ashes on the ground. Immediately, under the slight chakra vortex caused by Kiyoshi's casual wave of his hand, the ashes left by Otsutsuki Momoshiki were directly blown away completely, and no trace of its existence could be found. At this point, Otsutsuki Momoshiki is dead. At the same time, this also means that the three Otsutsuki who were given the task of finding the traces of Otsutsuki Ashiki and Otsutsuki Kagaya by the Otsutsuki clan in the nearby star field, namely the duo of Otsutsuki Kinshiki and Otsutsuki Momoshiki plus Otsutsuki Arashiki who acted alone, all died in the ninja world. Fly across time and space, scatter, and decay along with your bones. Kiyoshi murmured in a low voice, as if he was bidding farewell, melancholy, to Otsutsuki Momoshiki, the enemy who had just slightly pleased him. And these words, the description of killing the gray bones together, appeared directly in his mind when he obtained the bloodline net ability of killing the gray bones together. Woohoo tilde. Chapter 600 tilde. Entering the final ending tilde. Kagaya, who had been watching from the sidelines for the entire scene, slowly came to Seiji's side after Seiji had completely destroyed Otsutsuki Momoshiki's body and ashes, with an uncontrollable amazement revealed in her pair of white eyes. Although she has a general understanding of her man's current strength, she also firmly believes that her man can gain the upper hand and even achieve the ultimate victory in the battle with Otsutsuki Kinshiki and Otsutsuki Momoshiki. But she really didn't expect that Qingxi would be so relaxed in the battle with the opponent. First, he killed Kinshiki, who was famous in the clan for his strong physique and powerful physical skills, with one strike. Afterwards, he leisurely and effortlessly toyed with Otsutsuki Momoshiki, who was at the same level of bloodline network, and easily killed him in a very short time. This made her feel a little ashamed. What was she afraid of back then? Although she had lost her memories of Kiyoshi at that time, after watching the slightly clumsy performance of Otsutsuki Kinshiki and Otsutsuki Momoshiki just now, Kagaya couldn't help but feel that she could go after them. Qingxi gently and elegantly patted his body with his free hand, as if to brush off the dust that had accumulated from the battle but was not actually there. Immediately, he smiled gently at Kagaya and handed the chakra fruit he had taken from Otsutsuki Momoshiki to Kagaya. Just now, he had deeply sensed the chakra fruit in his hand, and the result shocked him greatly, so he wanted to let Kagaya take a look. Kagaya watched Qingxi's actions and a warm feeling surged in her heart. She immediately understood Qingxi's thoughts, so she took the chakra fruit without saying a word, and sensed it carefully. Then a look of surprise appeared on her face. You know, neither Seiji nor Kagaya had ever eaten the chakra fruits cultivated by the Otsutsuki clan on other planets. Therefore, although both of them knew that the chakra fruits produced in the ninja world were extraordinary in strength, but the two of them did not expect that the gap between them would be so exaggerated. Compared to the chakra fruit swallowed by Kagaya 1,000 years ago and the chakra fruit swallowed by Seiji not long ago, the energy contained in this chakra fruit obtained from Otsutsuki Momoshiki cannot be said to be far different, but the two are simply incomparable. If it is quantified by the strength of a ninja, then it is roughly the difference between a genin and a six paths level, and the difference may even be even more outrageous. All I can say is that the ninja world, a top nursery that can be counted among the best in the universe and even ranked at the top, lives up to its reputation. Therefore, for Seiji or Kagaya, who have now mastered a variety of bloodline network abilities and whose strength is not far from the limit of the six paths level, this chakra fruit cannot be said to be useless, but it can only be said to be better than nothing. However, the second chakra fruit in the ninja world will still take a lot of time to develop. Therefore, this chakra fruit can just fill the gap, and it can be regarded as Qingxi's, borrowing flowers to offer to Buddha, to thank Kagaya for her previous help to him. After all, the chakra fruit he swallowed should have belonged to Kagaya. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. After pecked Qingxi's cheek lightly, Kagaya's lips curled up slightly, revealing a faint smile, and when their eyes met, a hint of tenderness flashed in her eyes. Immediately, she no longer hesitated and put the chakra fruit in her hand directly into her mouth. Kyoto, Ministry of Science and Technology. Laboratory entrance. Sanzu Amato had received a message from Seiji before he left, so he was patiently waiting for Seiji and Kagaya to return. Suddenly, the space in front of Amato was distorted on a large scale, and the void collapsed instantly, forming a dark pixel-like black space channel. The next second, Seiji and Kagaya walked out of it slowly hand in hand. Upon seeing this, Amato's expression suddenly became serious and he immediately bowed. Mizukage-sama, Kagaya-sama, as the person who controls the core technology of the Hidden Mist Village and even the Ancestral Kingdom, and is appointed by Seiji as the person in charge of all things related to chakra technology, Sanzu Amato is usually expressionless, cold, and arrogant, even in front of other senior executives. But only in front of Qingxi, who saved him and helped him realize his dream, he was extremely obedient and respectful. After all, for him, the kindness of Lord Mizukage can never be repaid. Moreover, during his years of research, based on what he had glimpsed of the Otsutsuki clan, which was probably just the tip of the iceberg, he knew very well how terrifyingly powerful Seiji, as a complete Otsutsuki, was. Therefore, generally speaking, Amato, who already knew Kagaya's identity, also had great respect for Kagaya. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Tilda, Qingxi nodded in response, and then changed the subject. Come on, Amato, take us to see what you said in the telegram. Dash 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 dash. Soon, under the guidance of Amato, Seiji and Kagaya entered the laboratory located in the deepest part that belonged to Amato. As soon as they entered the experiment, what caught Seiji and Kagaya's eyes was a pale humanoid creature lying on a raised test table in the center of the laboratory. Of course, saying humanoid may not be accurate. In Qingxi's perception, it was clearly a human body, but there was no consciousness in it. In other words, a vegetative state. Master Seiji, Master Kagaya. Amato walked to the test bench and stood still. He turned around and said proudly with a faint smile, "This is the special body that I carefully prepared based on the special white zetsu given by Master Seiji, using the technology of biological cloning and integrating the blood of the original Moon Otsutsuki clan." Well, after hearing this, Seiji and Kagaya slowly walked to the test bench, stretched out their hands and placed them on it, with a hint of confusion and curiosity in their eyes, and then their senses surged, and they carefully examined the body in front of them. For Qingxi, he only put forward relevant requirements and some ideas to Sanzu Amato that he didn't know whether they could be realized, but he really didn't know what technology the other party would use to achieve it, and what kind of effect would be achieved in the end. Therefore, after seeing Amato produce results so quickly, Qingxi felt confused and curious. He wondered how Amato had completed his requirements in such a short time, and he was curious whether the results Amato had produced were what he wanted in his heart. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Is this the body prepared for Black Zetsu? After a while, Kagaya raised her hand and looked at Qingxi and asked. Kiyoshi had mentioned to her before that she wanted to prepare a normal body belonging to the Otsutsuki clan for her eldest son Black Zetsu. After all, she was about to be sealed at the last moment, and she squeezed out the last bit of strength in a hurry, and created the Black Zetsu with her will through yin-yang release. This results in the fact that, although Black Zetsu's body has the characteristics of yin-yang escape, it does not have the characteristics of a so-called human, in the standard sense. Therefore, what Seiji wanted was to make Black Zetsu a real Otsutsuki, on the one hand to encourage his efforts over the years. Therefore, after returning from the parallel universe, Kiyoshi asked Sandu Amato to prepare a better body for Black Zetsu. On the other hand, Kiyoshi was planning to have Black Zetsu take over the responsibility of taking care of the nursery and the sacred tree planted on it in the ninja world when the two of them were away. You know, Seiji has already agreed with Kagaya that after the sacred tree planted by Kagaya bears the chakra fruit, he and Kagaya will go to the Otsutsuki ancestral star in a distant star field. As the manifestation of Kagaya's will, Black Zetsu can be said to be an existence that Seiji and Kagaya can trust 100% in the ninja world. Therefore, Black Zetsu must become a real Otsutsuki. That's right. Chingxi nodded in affirmation, and then changed the subject and asked, "What do you think?" Enough. Sensing the body in front of her, which had extremely thin Otsutsuki blood compared to hers and Seiji's, Kagaya had no reason to disagree. After all, it goes without saying that it would be very difficult to create a genuine Otsutsuki body from scratch, relying only on White Zetsu's body and the blood of the Otsutsuki clan on the moon. Besides, aren't she and Chingxi still here? When Black Zetsu integrates into this body with the help of her and Seiji, she will naturally help Black Zetsu and improve his bloodline to a sufficient level. Another moment passed. A faint sense of oppression began to emanate from Heiju's body due to his lack of control over his body. That is the innate aura of the authentic Otsutsuki. Immediately, circles of sticky chakra ripples started from Black Zetsu's body and covered the entire laboratory in the blink of an eye. At this moment, the chakra fluctuations of Black Zetsu began to rise wildly at an exponential rate. Dozens of breaths passed quickly, and the chakra fluctuations emitted by Black Zetsu began to gradually stabilize, and finally stabilized at a level close to the super shadow level limit. After all, Black Zetsu has just merged with this body, and there is still a lot of potential to be tapped, whether it is the control of the body or the development of his own abilities. Therefore, it won't be long before Black Zetsu will be able to enter the Six Paths level naturally, just like Otsutsuki Hamura who had not yet obtained the Samsara Eye 1,000 years ago. Of course, Black Zetsu is different from Otsutsuki Hamura in essence. At this time, he is not a castrated version of Otsutsuki like Otsutsuki Hagoromo and Otsutsuki Hamura, but a real Otsutsuki with a long lifespan like the Starry Sky Otsutsuki clan. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. How do you feel? Are you getting used to the body? Kagaya's cold yet gentle words of concern echoed in the ears of Black Zetsu who had just opened his eyes. Well, Black Zetsu sighed softly, slowly sat up from the test bench, and spoke, his tone tinged with a resurfacing excitement. "Mother, I feel great now. I have no problem adapting to this body. I would also like to thank my father for his efforts, and Minister Amato for his help." After a slight pause, Black Zetsu looked at Seiji and Sanzu Amato on the other side and expressed his gratitude. He has already made his way to a wide circle. Knowing that Chingxi is the real boss, he will not take advantage of this opportunity to flatter him with a clear conscience. Immediately, Black Zetsu controlled the real physical touch, put his feet on the ground, tentatively stood up, and then took a small step forward towards Kagaya. There was a hint of uneasiness in his eyes, and he wanted to say something, but he seemed to be hesitant. "That's good." Kagaya didn't notice Black Zetsu's expression, but nodded with satisfaction after hearing Black Zetsu say that it was okay. After all, Black Zetsu being able to become a proper Otsutsuki was also the fulfillment of one of her wishes. In that case, from now on, your name will be Kagaya. At this moment, Chingxi suddenly spoke softly, interrupting Kagaya, and at the same time gave Kagaya a slight signal with his eyes. Kagaya, who was focusing all her attention on observing whether there were any other problems with Black Zetsu's body, didn't notice it, but that doesn't mean Seiji didn't notice it either. Therefore, when he looked at Howdaher's posture and expression, which did not match that of the mastermind behind the millennium, the corners of his mouth subconsciously curled up in an imperceptible arc. And under Chingxi's reminder, Kagaya finally noticed Black Zetsu's cautious movements and expression, so her heart softened instantly, a hint of apology flashed in her eyes, and she took a small step forward and gently held Black Zetsu in her arms. "Thanks a lot." In an instant, the radiance of motherhood, like the warmest sunshine in spring, sprinkled on every corner of the laboratory, as if time had frozen at this moment. A picture of a loving mother and a filial son slowly unfolds. "From now on, your name is Otsutsuki. Absolute style." Immediately, Kagaya once again repeated the words that she had not yet finished saying. The voice sounded softly in the ears of Black Zetsu. "No, now it should be called Otsutsuki Zetsushi," and then continued to echo and echo. Ching-si, who witnessed this scene, also had a smile on his face. This feeling seemed unexpectedly good. After all, the creation of Zetsushi was achieved by the combined efforts of him and Kagaya using yin-yang escape. Whether it is his Otsutsuki bloodline or the chakra flowing in his body, there are traces of him. Even further, it is not an exaggeration to say that the current Otsutsuki Zetsushiki was created by him and Kagaya. Dash 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 dash. I went back to my hometown to deal with some things and didn't bring my computer with me. I have to rely on my phone to update randomly in the next few days. Seeing that Kagaya and Zetsushi had no intention of ending for the time being, Seiji signaled Sanzu Amato with his eyes and went to the other side of the laboratory together. Mizukage-sama. Without Ching-si saying anything, Sanzu Amato immediately took out a scroll and handed it to Ching-si. "This is the modification I made to the impure world reincarnation according to your request." After hearing this, Ching-si took it and opened it, took a quick look, and then his eyes suddenly lit up. His pupils twitched subconsciously, as if he was attracted by the contents of the scroll. His gaze stayed on one spot for a long time without moving. This is exactly the focused transformation and strengthening that Sanzu Amato carried out according to Chingji's request, based on the impure world reincarnation that Chingji learned from Kabuto Yakushi in a parallel universe. And this is also the second task that Ching-si gave to Sanzu Amato. The forbidden summoning technique, immortal reincarnation, developed by the second Hokage, Senju Tobarama, has become extremely powerful and perfected thanks to the efforts of Orochimaru and Kabuto Yakushi. However, this is not the most important thing for Ching-si. After all, Ching-si did not want to use this technique to increase the combat power of the Hidden Mist Village. His goal was to resurrect. Therefore, he does not need to improve the accuracy and strength like Kabuto Yakushi, while also paying attention to strengthening the restraint and control of the impure world body to prevent the impure world body from escaping the control of the practitioner. Judging from Kabuto Yakushi's memories and the state of the impure world master after his resurrection, the quality of the sacrifice and its bloodline condition will indeed have an important impact on the strength of the resurrection. Therefore, in order to allow his parents to be resurrected in the best condition or even further directly transformed into the Otsutsuki bloodline, he only needs to let Sanzu Amato increase the strength of immortal reincarnation to the greatest extent possible. As expected of you. After a few breaths, Ching-si exclaimed in admiration after thinking about Amato's improvements to the technique. It can be said that Sanzu Amato's research ability is not inferior to that of the inherently evil Senju Old Ghost who invented the impure world reincarnation. In fact, in Seiji's opinion, Amato is even more powerful than Senju Tobarama. After all, Amato has made great achievements in chakra technology, ninjutsu research, biological cloning, and genetic analysis. It is no exaggeration to call him a versatile person. Then, without waiting for Amato to respond, Seiji directly took out the two most perfectly prepared white Zetsu clones that he had prepared long ago from the Takamagahara space. "I leave it to you, go ahead and do it." Ching-si's faint voice of command rang in Sanzu Amato's ears. Dash 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 dash. Half an hour passed in a flash. Amato finally completed the further modulation of one of the white Zetsu clones, so that after the impure world reincarnation, Kagaya Genji, Seiji's father, could exert strength far beyond his peak in his lifetime. After seeing Amato complete his preparations, Shinji did not delay any longer. He waved his hand again and took out a pale, sharp bone blade from the Takamagahara space. It was the gift that Kagaya Genji created through the corpse bone vein, strengthened with his own chakra, and finally gave to Seiji for self-defense. Because of the characteristics of the Kekkei Genkei Shikatsu, this bone blade can just meet the necessary conditions for Kagaya Genji's impure world reincarnation, that is, the DNA information of Kagaya Genji contained in the bone blade. Immediately, after signaling Amato to step back with his eyes, Qingxi solemnly performed a long-lost wave of hand seals. Chakra ripples spread across Qingxi's body, and the 4 seals of Yin-Si Shuchen were completed in an instant. Then, as Qingxi put his hands together, the spiritual magic circle that had just been engraved by Sanzu Amato on the floor of the laboratory also lit up with a dazzling white light in an instant. Summoning technique. Impure world reincarnation. In an instant, endless fragments of filthy earth emerged from the spiritual formation, and then quickly covered the prepared Baiju clone located in the center of the formation. The white Zetsu clone immediately let out a series of unconscious howls of pain. After all, even though it was a special white Zetsu specially prepared by Seiji for the impure world reincarnation, and Seiji also released an illusion through the samsara eye that was enough to make it sink for decades, the pain of being used as a sacrifice still made it scream while immersed in the illusion. When the dust of the filthy earth slowly dissipates, what was revealed was none other than Kagaya Genji's face full of cracks, proving her identity as an impure world body. The art of reincarnation from dirty soil. Success. I am. A slightly hoarse voice was heard, and the revived Kagaya Genji slowly opened his eyes cloudy and confused. Where is this? I remember. I should have been dead. Why am I alive again? Still in a daze, and not yet fully conscious, Kagaya Genji stared blankly at his cracked hands, which he subconsciously raised slightly, and kept muttering to himself. Qingji looked at the familiar face of his father Kagaya Genji, whom he had not seen for many years but had appeared in his memories countless times, and his eyes unconsciously became moist. Father! Qingxi's gentle call shook Kagaya Genji's still confused consciousness, and a throbbing feeling ran through his soul instantly arose. In an instant, Kagaya Genji woke up and remembered everything. Is it Seiji? Genji looked at the easily recognizable horns on Seiji's forehead and the face that was very similar to that of his deceased wife who was engraved deep in his soul, and his eyes revealed an uncontrollable excitement. However, his voice seemed to be strangled by an invisible force, and every word he uttered seemed so difficult and heavy. The tone that had been steady just now was trembling slightly, like a leaf that had been ravaged by a gust of wind, as if it would break at any time, and there was also a faint sound of sobbing in it. Father! Kiyoshi took a step forward and hugged Genji, who was in the impure world body state, tightly, with tears quietly covering his cheeks. This simple greeting from Kagaya Genji, filled with countless emotions, broke through Seiji's defenses in just a moment, causing him to burst into tears after calling him father once again. When Kagaya Genji woke up, his heart was also as turbulent as the surging waves. However, because he had just resurrected, and was not familiar enough with this filthy body, his movements were a little slower than half a beat. Therefore, Genji had no choice but to hug Kiyoshi tightly with his backhand as Kiyoshi rushed over, and gently patted Kiyoshi's back with his palm. The gentle movement seemed to comfort Kiyoshi and himself. Each pat conveyed an indescribable emotion. The cherishment and joy of reuniting with her son, the guilt and regret for leaving too early, and the joy and comfort of seeing her son grow up. The long-lost warmth and affection between father and son made time seem to stop at this moment. It took a long time for Seiji and Genji to calm down. How long has it been now? Genji looked at Seiji, who had become a young man, and the shining high-tech experimental equipment around him, and his hoarse voice sounded. Genji, who had calmed down his agitated emotions, had gradually realized that this was no longer the era he was in, and that he had been resurrected by Seiji through some forbidden ninjutsu. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. 45 years of Kirigakure, almost 20 years have passed. After listening to Kiyoshi's brief account of his experiences over the years, Genji sighed, his eyes filled with pity and heartache. You've worked so hard these years. Hearing Genji's words, Chinji's eyes became moist again. However, after their initial meeting, he was now able to control his emotions well. Therefore, after taking a breath and pausing for a moment, "Father, I'm doing well with everyone here." After nearly 20 years of separation, Seiji felt that he had a lot of things to say to his father Genji, and a lot of feelings he wanted to express to him. But in the end, after telling his own experiences, he found that just watching was enough for him. "Father, this is my wife, Kagaya." Seiji went to Kagaya, who had already finished communicating with the newborn, Otsutsuki Zetsushiki, but was a little nervous, shy and embarrassed because it was the first time she met Seiji's real family, and introduced her to her father Genji. At the same time, Seiji also introduced Zetsushiki to Genji as his and Kagaya's child. Although, in the future he and Kagaya will definitely give birth to another Otsutsuki that will truly belong to them both. But it is undeniable that the chakras of Seiji and Kagaya, as well as the blood of the two, entered into Zetsushi's body in the process of giving it a body and sublimating its blood. Therefore, without considering ethics, and only looking at it from a biological perspective, in a sense, the Zetsushiki that now combines the chakra and Otsutsuki bloodline of the two infuses them into one can indeed be conceptually called his and Kagaya's child. Okay. Ha 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 ha. Genji laughed heartily. Just now, when he saw Kagaya's loving eyes falling on Seiji from time to time, Genji already had some guesses in his heart. Now, after getting Seiji's confirmation and formal introduction, his emotions couldn't help but get excited again. It can be said that once you recover, you can enjoy the happiness of family. However, before Genji could finish expressing his joy, Seiji interrupted his hearty laughter that echoed throughout the laboratory. "Father, where did you bury mother?" Soon, under Genji's guidance, Seiji used Yomi Hirasaka, and came to a rather hidden valley near the extremely remote fishing village in the southern part of the land of water where he had lived as a child. Then, in the corner of the valley, Chingsi saw the tomb with a lot of weeds growing around it. This is the place where Kagaya Genji buried his wife, Kagaya Yukiko, Seiji's mother. The power of time is the most ruthless. When Chingsi gently opened the grave, Kagaya Yukiko, who was sleeping in it, had already turned into a pile of bones. Immediately, without any hesitation, Chingsi extracted enough DNA information from the bone marrow. After restoring the cemetery, he did not stay and activated Yomi Hirasaka again and returned to the laboratory. Although Chingsi's behavior was not appropriate, after all, it was for the purpose of resurrecting his mother Yukiko and finally reuniting the family. Therefore, in his heart, it was not an offense or blasphemy. When Kagaya Genji in the laboratory saw what Kiyoshi did, she was so shocked that she opened her mouth subconsciously and couldn't recover for a long time. Just now, from Chingsi's introduction, he already knew that the laboratory he was in was located in the capital of the original Fire Country. However, Chingsi traveled back and forth to the southern part of the Water Country in just a few breaths. This outrageous display of strength can be said to have overturned Genji's cognition. You know, he had seen the space-time ninjutsu of the second-generation Hokage, Tobarama Senju, the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, in the past. Moreover, he was once the captain of the Shadow Guard of the second-generation Mizukage of the Hidden Mist Village, and had even fought against cage-level strongmen on the battlefield. Therefore, in that era, Genji's vision could be said to be top-notch in the ninja world. And it is precisely because of this that Genji understands even more clearly what kind of terrifying strength is needed to reach the level of Kiyoshi. At least, from his perspective, it is completely unimaginable. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. With the experience of preparing the White Zetsu clone to reincarnate Kagaya Genji, this time, Sanzu Amato only took about half the time to prepare a new White Zetsu clone. And Seiji did not let his father Genji wait any longer. After everyone pushed him away, he clasped his hands together and activated the impure world reincarnation technique. Along with the appearance of the filthy dust and the wailing sound of the white Zetsu clone, the person revealed was none other than Seiji's mother, Kagaya Yukiko. Because Kagaya Yukiko passed away due to deteriorating health when Seiji was only 3 years old, Seiji and Yukiko don't have many memories of their time together, and most of them are from a long time ago. After all, although most children in the ninja world mature early due to the influence of the extraordinary power of chakra and the extremely unstable living environment with frequent wars, the time when they start to remember things is definitely not too early. Not to mention, although Qingxi is a time traveler with memories of his past life, he did not gain access to the memories of his past life sealed deep in his mind until he was 8 years old. In other words, when Qingxi was young, he was actually a native of the ninja world. Autumn nights are neither so long nor so short in the year. But to Qingxi, it felt incredibly short. Throughout the night, it was mostly his father Genji and his mother Yukiko who did the talking, while he, Kagaya, and their eldest son Zetsushiki were listening and answering from time to time. Although Qingxi and his mother Yukiko were a little unfamiliar with each other at the beginning, after all, mother and child are connected by heart, and blood is thicker than water. The spiritual attraction from the closest people cannot be faked. Therefore, under Genji's guidance, there was soon no longer any barrier between Seiji and his mother Yukiko. The family reunited and continued to talk about the good things. It is worth mentioning that after completing his mission and seeing that Kagaya Yukiko had successfully resurrected, Sanzu Amato was very discerning and quietly withdrew from the laboratory, leaving time and space to Seiji's family. There are no excessive embellishments, no fancy words, only sincere words. One night passed by quietly and unknowingly in the calm, warm and harmonious conversation like the gurgling of water. The next morning, Seiji used the Yomi Hirasaka to take his family directly to the moon. It's time to let father and mother truly come back to life. However, Qingxi did not bring his disciple Nagato with him as he had originally planned. After all, both Seiji and Kagaya have the 9 Magneto Rinnegan, which is more advanced than the ordinary Rinnegan. The 9 Magneto, Samsara I naturally has the ability to activate the Samsara natural power. And that's not all. For Qingxi, who has achieved the 6 paths level through the Kekkei network, and whose strength has almost reached the pinnacle of the 6 paths level. If only Father Genji and Mother Yukiko were resurrected, even if their impure world forms had the characteristics of the Otsutsuki clan due to added ingredients, or it could be said that they were weakened versions of the Otsutsuki clan, then there would not be much consumption. Therefore, there is no need to trouble Nagato as a disciple. Qingxi can do it himself. Outer Path, the art of reincarnation. As 2 dazzling white beams of light wrapped around Genji and Yukiko's impure earth bodies soared into the sky, the boundary between life and death was completely blurred at this moment, and the next moment, yin and yang were reversed. In an instant, the void rolled violently like a boiling cauldron, and endless chakra, like rivers flowing into the sea, rushed towards the impure world forms of Genji and Yukiko at an astonishing speed. It was an indescribable spectacular sight. Chakra was like a torrent so thick that it was almost tangible, roaring and surging. Wherever it passed, the originally peaceful space became turbulent. And in the thick chakra torrent, countless tiny grains of sand seemed to be held up by an invisible force, suspended in the air. Under the light of the artificial sun, these gravels further refract fine and brilliant light, like stars in the night sky, or as if a galaxy pours down from the sky and falls on the earth. The entire space inside the moon was filled with this surging chakra. This situation lasted for several minutes before it finally subsided and returned to its previous calm. A fresh breath began to slowly spread out from the 2 people's bodies. At this moment, Kagaya Genji and Kagaya Yukiko returned to the human world. Of course, after resurrection, it might be more accurate to call Kagaya Genji and Kagaya Yukiko Otsutsuki Genji and Otsutsuki Yukiko based on the blood in their bodies. dash 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 dash. After spending a few days traveling in the ninja world with his parents, Seiji left some time alone with Genji and Yukiko. Afterwards, after leaving the ninja realm in the care of Zetsushiki, Seiji and Kagaya embarked on a journey through the stars to other star regions. The two's target is those planets with life in other star fields that have sufficient energy. You know, the scope of a star field is extremely vast, and in this vast star field, there are countless galaxies. For a galaxy, as long as it has stars, there may be planets that can give birth to life. As long as these life planets have enough energy, they may become nurseries for the Otsutsuki clan to plant the sacred tree. The targets of Seiji and Kagaya are precisely those planets with life where the Otsutsuki clan has planted the sacred trees and where the chakra fruits of the sacred trees are about to mature. After all, the ultimate goal of the two, the Otsutsuki ancestral planet, is extremely complicated. You know, since the Otsutsuki clan planted trees everywhere in the universe, endless years have passed, and there are quite a few Otsutsuki who have swallowed a large amount of chakra fruits, as seen in Ashiki's memory and known to Kagaya. Although the quality of those chakra fruits is very ordinary, and is far from comparable to the output of the ninja world. However, quantitative change leads to qualitative change. If the amount is sufficient, and large enough, it will inevitably push the strength of those Otsutsuki who have swallowed a large amount of chakra fruits to an extremely terrifying level. Therefore, before heading to the Otsutsuki ancestral planet, in addition to waiting for the fruit belonging to Kagaya to mature, Shinji also has to collect as many extra, wild, chakra fruits as possible to make further progress in strength. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. The black pixel-shaped space channel kept opening and closing. Seiji and Kagaya took turns using Yomi Hirasaka, and moved quickly in the starry sky. Soon, in less than a month, the two crossed the star field where the ninja world was located and entered the star field adjacent to the ninja world, which was the star field where Otsutsuki Momoshiki and Otsutsuki Kinshiki had planted the sacred tree before. Afterwards, several more days passed, and as the space channel slowly closed, Seiji and Kagaya arrived at a vast, unknown galaxy whose scenery was completely different from the other galaxies they had passed by. And in this extraordinarily large galaxy, there is a huge sun that is several times larger than the sun in the galaxy where the ninja world is located. It is like a huge burning fireball, emitting dazzling light and scorching energy. There are dozens of planets revolving around the sun, each of them moving in a unique orbit and speed that seems slow but is actually extremely fast. These planets vary in size and shape, some are like giant gas planets, while others are hard rocky planets. There are even a few particularly eye-catching twin stars among them. Not only did they revolve around each other, forming a strange and wonderful balance, but they also rotate around the sun together naturally and harmoniously. Among them, the largest pair of binary stars are the only two life planets in this huge galaxy. The Samsara Eye and the Byakugan opened silently, and at the same time, the Rinnegan on the foreheads of Seiji and Kagaya also emitted bursts of scarlet light. In their field of vision, behind the twin stars at the end of their sight, there was a huge shadow. A familiar spatial fluctuation. Otsutsuki Zushiki, who had just woken up from his deep sleep, murmured indifferently, "This should be Yozen Hirasaka." At this point, Otsutsuki Zushiki's tone suddenly took on a hint of anger, and his voice couldn't help but get louder. "I sense the fluctuations of Yomi Hirasaka. I guess someone from the clan just broke in." Damn it. The tall figure's expression changed. The younger generation in the clan now really don't know the rules. Don't they know that these dozens of nearby star systems belong to Master Zushi? Ah! Otsutsuki Zushi snorted coldly, and the Magatama in his purple reincarnation eyes flickered, and a deep and strange light flashed through it. "I haven't appeared in the clan for thousands of years. I'm afraid these younger generations in the clan have forgotten me, or think I'm dead. Looks like it's time to get out and stretch my legs a bit. Whooshi, prepare to return to the ancestral planet." As Otsutsuki Zushiki finished speaking, the entire starry sky suddenly seemed to vibrate under the influence of a powerful force. The sacred tree that originally spanned 2 planets also began to tremble violently at the same time, and the extremely huge crown on top of it also lit up with dazzling light at this moment. The chakra fruit, under the control of the sacred tree by Otsutsuki ancestor, matured ahead of time. Of course, this fruit was already on the verge of maturity, and the catalysis carried out by Otsutsuki Zushiki at this moment only accelerated the final process, which was only a hair's breadth away. As the sacred tree trembled, the pair of twin planets began to shake violently as if they had suffered an unprecedented magnitude 18 earthquake. Cracks began to appear on their surface, and magma gushed out of the cracks, forming huge pillars of fire that shot straight into space. The continents and oceans on the Gemini planets were also affected by the sacred tree and began to vibrate violently. The collision and compression of the plates caused a series of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The waves were surging, and they covered the sky and continued to surge towards the land. They were like high walls, so majestic that they seemed to swallow up the entire continent. The end is coming, and it is about to collapse. Immediately, thick and powerful roots, as if pulled by some powerful force, began to slowly shrink. They were like giant pythons, winding and swimming in the starry sky after breaking away from the Gemini, and then finally gathered on the roots and trunk of the sacred tree. Then, an extremely huge single eye emerged. The strange scarlet color was looming, deep, dark, and exuded an aura that made people subconsciously feel palpitations and fear. 2. When all the roots returned to the sacred tree, its form changed instantly. 10 tails, each as thick as an asteroid, danced and drifted freely behind it. However, just as the sacred tree transformed into the form of the 10 tails, and Otsutsuki was about to take back and devour the chakra fruit that Tai had cultivated on the Gemini for thousands of years, Seiji and Kagaya, who have recovered to their peak form, take action. The God Emperor Ray Zone, with the maximum amplification multiplier, was added to the Yomi Hirasaka. Seiji brought Kagaya and appeared directly behind Otsutsuki Zushiki and his guardian Otsutsuki Takeshiki. Although Otsutsuki Zushiki and Otsutsuki Takeshiki noticed something was wrong the moment the space channel appeared behind them, Yomi Hirasaka, blessed by Shenwang Chanrei Zun, was too fast. Start with 0 frame. Close your face and open it up. The attacks that Seiji and Kagaya had been preparing for a long time erupted at this moment. Boom! Accompanied by a huge roar that resounded through the starry sky, the 80 Gods aerial strike, with 10 times the power, just one encounter, was enough to shatter Otsutsuki Takeshiki into pieces, leaving not even a trace of his ashes. Flash sale. Another flash sale. This Otsutsuki named Takeshiki, who left a great reputation in the universe as the guardian of the Otsutsuki ancestor thousands of years ago, died suddenly at the hands of Seiji without even getting a chance to show his strength. At the same time, Kagaya's expanding truth-seeking ball, which she had been accumulating for a long time, directly hit Otsutsuki Soshiki's face, instantly causing an extremely terrifying and violent explosion. In an instant, the void was stirred by the explosion, and a large area of disordered distortion appeared. Then, the space shattered and was shrouded in endless darkness. An effect similar to the annihilation and swallowing of a black hole also appeared, tightly wrapping Otsutsuki Zushiki, who was at the center of the explosion. Lao dang! It's time to get the gold coins. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Bastard! Otsutsuki Zushiki, who was suddenly attacked, became furious instantly. Ow! At the same time, the 10 tails under Otsutsuki Soshiki, which had already changed its form and was extremely huge, also let out an extremely painful howl under the explosion of the expanding truth-seeking ball. It can be said, at this moment, Otsutsuki Zushiki no longer cared about savoring the fine chakra fruit in his hand that he had cultivated for thousands of years, nor did he have time to care about his subordinate Takeshiki, who was directly beaten to death by Seiji, and the 10 tails under him, who was seriously injured. Then, in this split second, he first relied on his tyrannical strength to burst out chakra at the last moment before being affected by the explosion to support a thick protective shield. Then, he put away the chakra fruit with a wave of his hand, and in an instant opened the Rinnegan in the center of his forehead. The bloodline binding ability belonging to the Otsutsuki ancestor was activated instantly. Yes, that's right. This Otsutsuki Zushiki, who has lived for an unknown period of time and has swallowed a large amount of chakra fruits, naturally also has the 9 Magatama Rinnegan and his own bloodline network ability. Immediately, next moment, an illusory shadow replaced Otsutsuki Zushiki and appeared at the center of the explosion, while his real body appeared at the edge of the explosion from a distance, and then white chakra flames rose from his body, and he directly killed Kagaya. I see. Seiji, who had just killed Otsutsuki Takeshiki with one blow, immediately understood Otsutsuki Takeshiki's bloodline network ability when he saw this. Based on the Samsara Eye technique, Wheelgrave and Hell, it's a bloodline-enhancing ability. It can be said that Qingxi, who had witnessed the effects of Six Paths Madara's Samsara Eye technique in a parallel world, was not unfamiliar with this at all. So, then, Qingxi's eyes became serious, and the tremendous power of his pupils burst out, and he pressed hard on Zushiki who was rushing towards Kagaya at a high speed. Samsaranga Eye, pressure. The Divine Emperor produces 10 times the Spiritual Lord. Facing Otsutsuki Zushiki, whose specific information was unclear but who was most likely a top-level Six Paths level expert like him, Seiji did not hold back at all. Every move and every style he used could be said to be the greatest power he could exert. After all, this battlefield is in the starry sky, and all we have to do is go all out and fire at full power. In addition, he didn't need to worry about not being able to control his strength and causing permanent damage to the nursery like he did in the ninja world. Then, in an instant, Otsutsuki Zushiki, who was flying towards Kagaya at a high speed, suddenly felt an extremely huge pressure descending on him like a tidal wave. Under the influence of the pressure, Zushi's body became extremely heavy, as if a mountain was pressing on him. His speed suddenly slowed down, just like a difficult trek in a quagmire. Every time he advanced a certain distance, he consumed a huge amount of chakra. Seeing this scene, Seiji's face revealed a slight solemnity. Otsutsuki Soshiki's performance has already verified Seiji and Kagaya's guess about his strength. Being able to keep moving under the pressure whose power has increased tenfold, and even keep moving forward, not only means that Otsutsuki Zushiki has an unusually strong body, but also means that his strength has reached the pinnacle of the Six Paths level. But that's all. After all, he is not alone. Qingxi's mind was full of thoughts, and all kinds of ideas flashed through his mind quickly. 2 against 1. The advantage is mine. At the same time, Kagaya, who had recovered from the brief stiffness caused by the use of the expanding truth-seeking ball, raised her hand and pushed the Otsutsuki Zushiki who was greatly slowed down in the distance. 80 God's aerial attack. The giant fist of endless chakra, carrying a magnificent force, smashed towards Otsutsuki Zushiki, causing violent ripples in the void. At the same time, Qingxi followed closely behind the giant chakra fist, his body transformed into a blue-green stream of light, and rushed towards Otsutsuki Zushiki quickly. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Idiot! Otsutsuki Zushiki roared angrily, his brows furrowed tightly, veins bulged on his forehead, and he looked extremely ferocious. He was already filled with rage, and now the anger in his heart became even stronger. Junior, you have successfully angered me. Killing intent burst out from Otsutsuki Soshiki's eyes. At the same time, the Rinnegan on his forehead lit up with a scarlet glow, and the white aura surrounding his body instantly turned golden. Immediately, a huge amount of chakra burst out, and in just a moment, it shook away the pressure that enveloped his body. 80 God's aerial attack. Without any pause, Otsutsuki Zushiki raised his hand and released the same moves as Kagaya. Boom, boom, boom. The sounds of fierce collisions continued one after another, constantly exploding in the void, and the air was filled with chaotic and violent chakra fluctuations. However, Seiji, who was following Kagaya's 80 God's aerial attack, faced the terrifying explosion caused by the collision. He did not dodge or escape. He rushed out of the explosion wrapped in a blue-green chakra coat and continued to move towards Otsutsuki Zushiki. Boom! In an instant, Chingxi collided with Otsutsuki Zushiki. Afterwards, the two men punched at the same time, pulled back at the same time, and then held each other at the same time. In the blink of an eye, they fought for more than 10 rounds, and then retreated and separated at the same time again. However, with the support of the unreasonable bloodline network ability of Shenhuang Chanlingzhen, Qingji was much stronger than Otsutsuki Zushiki in both speed and power in the previous collision. This can be clearly seen from the state of the two people. Both were standing far away in the starry sky. Qingxi had an upright posture, and his white Otsutsuki robe was as neat as new, with the hem of his robe fluttering slightly without wind. There was a faint, indifferent smile on the corner of his mouth, steady and deep, calm and unhurried, like an unshakable mountain. In comparison, Otsutsuki Soshiki's condition seemed a little embarrassed. His breathing was a little rapid, and his robe was no longer tidy. Not only were there many tears in it, but there were also several deep fist marks on it. It was obvious that he had been at a disadvantage in the previous confrontation. Otsutsuki Zushiki's face was gloomy, and his purple eyes of reincarnation were full of gloom, staring at Seiji and Kagaya in front of him. He found it hard to believe that he would be at a disadvantage in a head-on collision with the opponent. Although he had just woken up from a deep sleep and his body was not yet in combat condition when he suddenly engaged in the battle, you have to know that he was already the top fighter in the Otsutsuki clan thousands of years ago. Even if he did not fully exert his strength, this should not be the result. After all, considering the efficiency of the Otsutsuki clan in planting trees, in thousands of years, it would be impossible for these two juniors whom he had never heard of in the clan before to obtain too many chakra fruits, let alone possess such strength. And so, there is a secret. These two juniors have a big secret. Otsutsuki Zushiki kept roaring in his heart, but at the same time, a hint of fiery greed involuntarily appeared in the depths of his eyes. Capture these two juniors. Obtain the secret of their power. Then I can advance even further in strength, even surpassing the 6 paths level and becoming the legendary Otsutsuki god of the clan. At this time, Otsutsuki Soshiki had not yet realized the seriousness of the matter. In his opinion, he was just careless and not serious enough. As long as he takes it seriously and gives it his all, it will be no problem for him to control these two juniors. Qingxi looked at Otsutsuki Zushiki's constantly changing expression, and a subtle curve inadvertently appeared at the corner of his mouth. At the same time, the space channel of Yomi Hirasaka quietly appeared behind Otsutsuki Zushiki. Immediately, Kagaya's figure appeared and pushed out a palm towards Otsutsuki Zushiki. Kill the gray bones together. The breath of annihilation spread out, and a gray-white bone spur suddenly emerged from the center of Kagaya's palm. At this moment, Qingji also stepped into the black pixel-shaped space channel in front of him and appeared in front of Otsutsuki Zushiki. He then activated the Tenho Ryzen, with 10 times the power, and was about to control Otsutsuki Zushiki on the spot. At the same time, the bone spur of Gungsha Wigu appeared in his palm, and then pierced directly into Otsutsuki Zushiki. A moment. Without any communication, Seiji and Kagaya worked in perfect harmony to attack Otsutsuki Zushi from both sides. However, Otsutsuki Zushiki is certainly no pushover. As an ancient Otsutsuki who became famous throughout the universe thousands of years ago, he not only has extremely rich combat experience, but also has a thorough understanding of most of the bloodline abilities that the Otsutsuki clan obtained after swallowing the chakra fruit. Therefore, the moment the domain of Tenho Ryzen, that controlled time unfolded, the power of the Otsutsuki ancestors' Rinnegan also exploded to the extreme at the same time. Although no one in the Otsutsuki clan has obtained Tenho Ryzen, nowadays, Otsutsuki Zushiki, who was once the top combat force of the Otsutsuki clan, still has enough information and understanding about this terrifying bloodline network ability that can play with time. Too naive. Otsutsuki Zushi sneered coldly, his tone icy. While he was unleashing all the power of the Rinnegan to counter the control of time by Tenho Raizen, he once again summoned an illusory shadow to bear the joint-killing ash bones of Seiji and Kagaya on his behalf, and then he flashed and rushed towards Kagaya. After several fights, in the eyes of Otsutsuki Soshiki, the threat posed by Kagaya is much smaller than that posed by Seiji. So, in a one-on-two situation, he planned to get rid of Kagaya, the weak one, first, and then concentrate on dealing with Seiji. Seeing Otsutsuki Zushiki's actions, a gleam of light flashed in Chingxi's eyes, and then he burst out with a speed faster than Otsutsuki Zushiki, and stopped him halfway before he rushed in front of Kagaya. When Otsutsuki Zushiki saw Seiji blocking the way in front of him, he immediately changed the target of his attack and collided with Seiji again. All of a sudden, as Otsutsuki Zushiki and Seiji collided with all their might, wisps of strange light mixed with golden and blue-green colors surged in the void like raging waves, as if to illuminate the nearby starry sky. Boom, boom, boom. Earth-shaking sounds continued to be heard, and the speed of Qingji and Otsutsuki Zushiki soared faster and faster, but it was difficult to determine the winner for a while, and a situation of confrontation was temporarily formed. The overflowing strong and restless qi and blood, intertwined with the violent and intense chakra produced by the collision, were like a group of enraged beasts, running wildly in the void, making shrill roars wherever they passed. A powerful chakra storm swept in all directions, causing the entire universe and starry sky to tremble continuously. The originally calm void was like a shattered mirror. At first, only cracks appeared, but then these hideous cracks began to spread wildly in all directions, spreading like a spider web. Space fragments of various sizes exploded in all directions like raindrops, and a violent space storm formed instantly, raging at an alarming speed, trying to swallow everything up. From the beginning to the end, both sides just kept fighting without any intention of asking each other's name. After all, for Otsutsuki Soshiki, from the moment Seiji and Kagaya broke into the galaxy that belonged to him and attacked him, the positions of both sides could be said to be a fight to the death. You must know that this kind of internal fighting is an act of treason and is not allowed at all. Not to mention that his guardian Otsutsuki Takeshiki was killed directly, without even leaving a wedge to revive him. Although the Otsutsuki clan is emotionally indifferent and Otsutsuki Takeshiki is just a tool to help him do things, no matter what, he is still his guardian and his most loyal subordinate. If he can even tolerate this, how will he survive in the clan in the future, and how will other Otsutsuki come to work for him? Therefore, confident that he had the strength to suppress the combined forces of Seiji and Kagaya, Otsutsuki Zushiki did not think it necessary to ask the names of these two juniors whom he did not take seriously. After all, if he could capture Seiji and Kagaya, he would naturally get everything he wanted to know. As for Seiji, he also had no intention of knowing the identity of Otsutsuki Zushiki. It was just because, like Otsutsuki Takeshiki, Otsutsuki Zushiki was already a dead man in his eyes, and why would it be necessary to know the name of a dead man? Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Boom, boom, boom. Two figures were flying in the void like comets. At this time, it was no longer a single collision of physical bodies, but a constant mixture of their respective powerful techniques and even their respective bloodline network abilities while colliding. Junior. Damn it. The more the fight went on, the more anxious Otsutsuki Zushiki became. Although the bloodline binding ability of Shenwang Chanrei Zun had never appeared in the Otsutsuki clan, with sufficient combat experience and combat intuition, he had already understood the role of Shenwang Chanrei Zun after dozens of rounds of fighting. This immediately caused an inexplicable sense of crisis to surge in Otsutsuki Zushiki's heart, as if a poisonous snake hidden in the darkness had bitten him unexpectedly, and his self-confidence slipped from his heart at an alarming speed. After another collision of the 80 Gods aerial strike, Qingxi, who had gained the upper hand due to the power of God Emperor Chanling Zun, was ruthless and faced the Otsutsuki Zushiki in front of him, who was sent flying for an unknown distance with his right hand. Heavenly Barrier Shock Star. The Divine Emperor produces 10 times the spiritual lord. With the bright sky blue light blooming from his reincarnated eyes, Qingxi used the moves he had used to punish the ghost army of monsters in the land of demons for the first time in a long time. You know, there are meteorites floating everywhere in the starry sky of the universe, and these meteorites are the best media to activate the TNI Junxing. Qingxi only needs to spend a little bit of eye power to easily smash all the nearby meteorites towards Otsutsuki Zushiki. In an instant, countless meteorites, under the control and attraction of the Samsara Eye, burst out at an astonishing speed, streaked through the void, and swarmed towards Otsutsuki Zushiki, dragging long tails of flames. When Otsutsuki Zushiki saw this, his pupils shook violently. Only the bloodline ability, Yomi Hirasaka, could guarantee that he would avoid a meteorite of this size hitting his face without any damage. However, as an Otsutsuki with great reputation in the universe, Otsutsuki Zushiki also has his own pride. He simply could not accept being suppressed like this by the younger generation of the clan in battle, and having to choose to dodge or even run away in the face of high-intensity attacks. Therefore, 80 years of disaster for the Sun God. Along with Otsutsuki Zushi's cold roar, a huge amount of chakra gushed out from his body, and the golden chakra flames surrounding him also expanded instantly at this moment like a volcanic eruption. A golden sun blooms dazzlingly in the starry sky of the universe, directly lighting up the originally dark starry sky. The next moment, clusters of bright blood-red flames suddenly appeared out of thin air without any warning. They were fueled by the expanding chakra of the Otsutsuki ancestor, burning fiercely and spreading rapidly, emitting a strange and scorching light. This is the Yasutsu Higami, which has the most powerful attack power among the bloodline network abilities mastered by Otsutsuki Zushiki. And he used this move to burn countless powerful enemies to death thousands of years ago. Layer upon layer of karmic fire burned, forming a thick flame barrier in the void, which struck towards the incoming meteorites, wrapping and melting each one. And Otsutsuki Zushiki followed closely behind, waving his hand and taking out a huge red halberd, dancing wildly, breaking through the flying rocks and meteorites, and heading straight for Qingxi. Bewei God Huang Warong. It is the same ability as Otsutsuki Kinshiki, but Otsutsuki Zushiki has further elevated it into a bloodline network. Aha! The moment Otsutsuki Soshiki and Kiyoshi crossed each other's bodies, the huge red halberd swept across Kiyoshi's waist and abdomen, leaving a huge wound on Kiyoshi's side so deep that the bone was visible. However, just as Otsutsuki Zushiki turned around and looked at the severely injured Qingxi, with a sneer on his face that the outcome was already decided, a large amount of white smoke exploded at Qingxi's location. Nani? Otsutsuki Zushiki was suddenly shocked. But before he could make any further reaction, a flash of extremely dazzling white light came into his eyes and froze in his mind, becoming the last scene he saw in his life. Expanding Tao-seeking Jade, the Divine Emperor produces 10 times the Spiritual Lord. After using his shadow clone to fake a shot to deceive Otsutsuki Soshiki, Seiji used the interference caused by the burning meteorite group of Yashiokujin Hikari to his perception and appeared silently on the other side of the battlefield. And when Otsutsuki Zushiki and his shadow clones intersected and blew up his shadow clones, he did not hesitate at all. He predicted the movement trajectory of Otsutsuki Zushiki and the position where he would appear, and launched a terrifying explosion with maximum power. You know, the power of the ordinary expanding truth-seeking ball that Kagaya just used is enough to easily destroy a planet. If the center of the explosion was not in the starry sky, and most of the damage was not taken by the 10 tails of Otsutsuki Zushiki, the pair of twin stars rooted by the sacred tree would have been annihilated long ago without even a fragment left. Therefore, let alone Qingxi's expanding Tao-seeking Jade, which has 10 times the blessing of the God Emperor's spiritual lord. The terrifying explosion completely tore apart the eternal silence of the starry sky. It was not the blooming of flames, but the collapse of existence itself. The light of billions of stars in the universe was swallowed up in an instant, a dazzling white light pierced through the darkness, and then collapsed into absolute nothingness. Black hole. It has no boundaries, only a gravitational field that continues to extend outward. The Gemini, which had already been crumbling in the aftermath of the battle, could no longer hold on this time and completely fell apart, turning into endless floating cosmic dust. Broken planetary debris, cosmic dust, and even dying rays are accelerated and torn apart in its gravitational field, turning into streams of particles that are swept into it. The surrounding space and time were slightly distorted, and the light here turned into strange arcs. It was a silent destruction, more suffocating than any noise. Nothing unexpected. Otsutsuki Zushiki was submerged in the center of the horrific explosion. Even though he had an illusory shadow that could take the damage, he still couldn't escape the range of the explosion. He was directly blown into a tattered, charred corpse with missing limbs and emitting a foul smell. He didn't even leave behind a single harsh word or last words before his death. Only the large tentails that was being slowly pulled in by the black hole, apart from absorbing a wave of damage at the beginning, basically played no role in the battle. It was blown into pieces and shattered, proving that a powerful Otsutsuki had just died here. At the moment the black hole was formed, Seiji opened the space channel of Yomi Hirasaka, accurately crossed the distant space, grabbed the body of Otsutsuki Soshiki, and then called Kagaya to run away together without looking back, away from this galaxy that was destined to have no future. You know, even the Otsutsuki clan, which can cross the starry sky, has no good way to deal with unreasonable black holes, which are dense celestial bodies with extremely strong gravity. Although there is no danger to life, once you are pulled by the powerful gravitational force erupting at the center, it will be quite difficult to break free and escape from the gravitational range of the black hole. Therefore, Qingxi decisively chose to leave. After all, he didn't want to waste his time on such meaningless things. A month later, Seiji and Kagaya returned to the ninja world. During this period, Kiyoshi swallowed the chakra fruit he took out from the arms of Otsutsuki Zushiki's corpse. It must be said that this chakra fruit, which absorbed all the life energy of the Gemini and was nurtured for thousands of years, is of decent quality. Its strength is about 15 times that of the chakra fruit he had taken from Otsutsuki Momoshiki before. Therefore, after swallowing it, Qingxi's strength was improved slightly on the original basis, which could be clearly felt, and he truly reached the limit of the 6 paths level. Moreover, not only that, this time he once again gained a new bloodline ability, Shichi Alchemy. That's right, it was the ability that Otsutsuki Momoshiki possessed to refine chakra pills. However, in Kiyoshi's case, it was further sublimated into a powerful ability of the bloodline net level. The effect of the bloodline network, Shichi Alchemy, is also very simple and crude. That is, the absorbed chakra can be refined into chakra pills that can restore the condition and enhance strength in just a short moment, and then absorbed quickly. Of course, if that were all, then there would not be any essential difference between this and the abilities possessed by Otsutsuki Momoshiki. The speed and efficiency of refining and absorbing chakra pills have been greatly improved. Compared to the ordinary, Shiji Renden, mastered by Otsutsuki Momoshiki, the ability mastered by Seiji to transform into the Kekkei Netra level is not only to refine the chakra in the technique or the chakra absorbed from ordinary ninjas into chakra pills. The objects of refining can be expanded to everything related to chakra, whether it is a technique or a living being. The Shichi Alchemy, at the bloodline level, can restore it to the most basic chakra, and then further refine it into a chakra pill. And among them is Otsutsuki. That's right, the Otsutsuki clan can be said to have a brand new role here with Seiji. Previously, Otsutsuki Kinshiki's corpse could be refined into chakra pills by Otsutsuki Momoshiki, simply because of the special physical characteristics of Otsutsuki Kinshiki's lineage. But for Qingxi, any Otsutsuki he meets in the future, as long as he can control them, can be forcibly refined into chakra pills with their extremely condensed blood and chakra, which will then become the nourishment for him to take a step further and even become the god of Otsutsuki. However, precisely because of the simple and crude effect of Shichi Alchemy, Qingxi actually prefers to call it instant refining. Dash 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 dash. 1 kun year later, the time came to the 48th year of Kirigakure. The 10 Tails divine tree planted by Kagaya finally accumulated enough energy to produce the minimum amount of chakra fruit. In addition, the chakra in the bodies of all the ninjas in the ninja world has long been restored, and is even more and stronger than the last time. It can be said that it is more than enough to produce a pretty good chakra fruit. Therefore, after Kagaya harvested and swallowed the chakra fruit, Seiji and Kagaya set out again and headed towards the depths of the universe. And their target this time is none other than the Otsutsuki ancestral star, which is extremely far away from the ninja realm and separated by who knows how many star regions. Of course, during this long journey, the two will also visit other life planets where the Otsutsuki planted sacred trees. After all, this is all fate. Pleiades star region, Nether Galaxy. After traveling towards the Otsutsuki ancestral planet in the starry sky for about half a year, Seiji and Kagaya finally felt the call of fate again. A chakra fruit that is not far from maturity. During the 6-month journey, the two had encountered life planets where other Otsutsuki planted sacred trees. But unfortunately, the chakra fruits produced by those sacred trees still need a long time to mature. Therefore, the two of them just glanced at each other calmly from a very long distance and then left. After all, they don't have the leisure to waste hundreds of years just waiting for a chakra fruit of only average strength to mature. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. In the vast forest that stretches as far as the eye can see, a towering tree stands out from the crowd of chickens. Its trunk is extremely tall, so tall that it almost touches the sky, and its roots are deeply rooted in the soil of the planet, even deep into the core of the planet. Not far from the tree trunk, there were two white figures, sitting cross-legged in midair, with their eyes half closed, guarding silently. At the same time, Seiji and Kagaya, who had shielded their own breath, had quietly approached the planet of life and were floating in space, silently observing the two Otsutsuki. For Seiji and Kagaya who possess the Rinnegan, these two Otsutsuki are like two bright lights lit in the darkness, so obvious that they couldn't be more obvious. Otsutsuki Yoshishiki, and Otsutsuki Ashishiki. Qingxi muttered to himself. After observing closely, he had already recognized the identities of the two Otsutsuki from Otsutsuki Ashiki's memories. Nothing to worry about. After all, Otsutsuki Ashiki's evaluation of these two clan members was just 4 words: mediocre. Although he barely reached the 6 paths level after a long time. It was only the weakest level among the 6 paths. Therefore, just rush in and crush the opponent with numbers. The space passage of Yomi Hirasaka opened, and Qingxi slowly floated into it. I'll be back soon. At the same time when Yomi Hirasaka was launched, one of the tall and thin Otsutsuki who was sitting cross-legged near the sacred tree suddenly opened his eyes, and a hint of vigilance flashed across his white eyes. Master Liangxi, there are subtle spatial fluctuations. Otsutsuki Ashishiki stood up and pulled out the red claw-shaped weapon hanging on his waist. Blue veins suddenly appeared around his eye sockets, and he had already opened the most iconic Byakugan of the Otsutsuki clan. Although he has not achieved the Kekkei net, and his strength is only that of a 6 paths level goalkeeper, he is no stranger to the most popular Kekkei net ability in the Otsutsuki clan, Yomi Hirasaka. In addition, his Byakugan, like Otsutsuki Kinshiki's, also possesses a kind of eye technique related to time and space. Therefore, he was able to detect the spatial fluctuations caused by Yomi Hirasaka in time. Of course, this is also because Qingxi did not use the Shenwang Chanlingzhen, and had no intention of concealing his whereabouts. After all, the opponents are just 2 ordinary Otsutsuki, and there is an overwhelming gap in strength. Hearing Otsutsuki Ashishiki's warning, Otsutsuki Ryoshiki, who was also tall and thin but had several strange lines on his face, instantly opened his half-closed eyes, opened his Byakugan, looked around vigilantly, and assumed a fighting stance. You know, the chakra fruit cannot be lost. Therefore, at this most critical moment when the fruit is about to mature, any disturbance must be taken seriously. However, in the face of absolute strength, all preparations of Otsutsuki Yoshishiki and Otsutsuki Ashishiki were ultimately in vain. The next second, Seiji appeared behind Otsutsuki Yoshishiki and kicked him hard in the back. So what if he could sense the spatial fluctuations of Yomi Hirasaka? Qingxi's eyes were full of indifference and disdain. Boom! The black shoe prints were deeply imprinted on the back of Otsutsuki Yoshiki's robe and were clearly visible. After Seiji's kick, Otsutsuki Yoshiki's body was like a kite with a broken string, flying forward out of control, and a large amount of blood spurted out of his mouth. Who is it? Otsutsuki Ashishiki reacted and roared angrily, picked up the claw-shaped weapon in his hand that was flashing with a cold red light, and swung it towards Qingxi. Boring. Qingxi shook his head slightly, then disappeared from the spot in a flash. When he appeared again, he was already in front of Otsutsuki Ashishiki. Since you are so eager to die, then I will satisfy you. Qingxi stretched out his right hand and grabbed his throat at a speed that the Otsutsuki Ashikabi had no time to react, then instantly exerted force and pressed hard to the ground. Boom! With a loud crash, Otsutsuki Ashishiki was penetrated deep into the ground by Seiji. A large amount of smoke and dust rose up instantly, covering everything around it. However, the three people present were all Otsutsuki, so the thick smoke and dust did not block their vision at all. Qingxi looked indifferently at the Otsutsuki Ashishiki who was deeply embedded in the ground by his blow. Without any pause, he stretched out his hand to lock the position of the Otsutsuki Ashishiki and fired a Tinian of all things. As a deep blue-green chakra light flashed across the palm of Qingxi's hand, a powerful gravitational force suddenly descended, instantly sucking back Otsutsuki Ashishiki who had just crashed into the deep underground. Followed by, there was a dull, bang, sound. And another powerful punch hit Otsutsuki Ashishiki's abdomen. This punch was as powerful as an iron hammer, directly knocking Otsutsuki Ashikabi's body into a bow shape. Otsutsuki Ashishiki's face instantly turned as pale as paper, completely bloodless. A handful of scarlet blood spurted out of his mouth uncontrollably, splashing in the air like a blooming blood flower, which was extremely dazzling. With this punch, Seiji's Senjutsu chakra also penetrated into Otsutsuki Ashishiki's body, causing Otsutsuki Ashishiki's chakra, who had suffered repeated heavy blows but still had the last bit of resistance, to stagnate in this critical moment. Immediately, the next moment, when the knocked-away Otsutsuki Ryushiki rushed back to the battlefield, Seiji had already completed a single kill of Otsutsuki Ashishiki. Otsutsuki Ashishiki, who was restrained by Seiji and had lost the power to resist, was easily taken into Seiji's Takamagahara space with a time-stop effect. And then, there is nothing much to say. When Kiyoshi was fighting 1 against 2 just now, he was able to take down the guardian Otsutsuki Ashishiki without any effort. Now that there is only Otsutsuki Ashishiki left, the battle will only be easier. Then, after dodging the attack of the returning Otsutsuki Ryoshiki, Seiji retreated a distance, then turned around and fired a Silver Wheel Tensai explosion at Otsutsuki Ryoshiki. Otsutsuki Ryoshiki, who was evaluated as mediocre by Otsutsuki Ashiki, did not disappoint Seiji. Before he could dodge, he was directly hit by the silver hurricane that Seiji sent out without even making any predictions. The chaotic and violent high-density wind pressure cut madly at Otsutsuki Ryoshiki's body. Although it did not cause any fatal damage for a while, it confined him to the spot. Afterwards, several chakra black sticks were instantly released by Seiji with the help of the eye techniques, Takamagahara, and Shonen Baikona, and were accurately inserted into the acupuncture points all over Otsutsuki Ryoshiki's body, completely blocking his ability to move. At this point, the mediocre duo of Otsutsuki Yoshishiki and Otsutsuki Ashishiki were easily defeated by Seiji in just a few breaths. Then, it's harvest time. After sending a message to Kagaya who was still waiting in space, Seiji ignored Otsutsuki Yoshishiki who was lying on the ground wailing with his body full of black sticks, but instead released Otsutsuki Ashishiki from the Takamagahara space with a wave of his hand. Immediately, Qingxi pressed one hand on Otsutsuki Ashishiki's abdomen, and the bloodline network ability, Shichi Lianden, was activated in an instant. After Otsutsuki Ashishiki let out a scream of extreme pain, his entire body was restored to the most basic chakra under Seiji's bloodline network ability, and then in an instant, it turned into a huge red pill, floating in front of Seiji. At this moment, Kagaya also walked out of the black pixel-shaped space channel. Is this the chakra pill made by Otsutsuki? His white eyes were fixed on the huge red pill in front of him, and there was a hint of curiosity in his tone. Yeah, Qingxi nodded with a smile, then flipped his palm and handed it to Kagaya. Seeing this, Kagaya thought for a moment, then reached out to take the pill. However, she did not choose to swallow it herself. Instead, she released the 10 tails in her body and fed the pill to her 10 tails. After all, this was made by Otsutsuki, so it would be a bit awkward to swallow it directly. In addition, her own strength has now reached the pinnacle of the 6 paths level. This chakra pill cannot even add icing on the cake for her. Therefore, it is better to feed it to the 10 tails to allow it to grow further. Qingxi had no objection to this because he had the same idea. Although the chakra fruits produced in the ninja world are extremely powerful, the growth of the 10 tails still depends more on the number of times trees are planted. Only by planting enough trees can the 10 tails continue to grow bigger and stronger, just like the 10 tails of Otsutsuki ancestor, which is so large that it is even comparable to a planet. Afterwards, Seiji followed suit and transformed Otsutsuki Ryoshiki into a huge red chakra pill, and fed it to the 10 tails that belonged to him. After doing all this, Seiji and Kagaya came to the flower bud at the top of the sacred tree, patiently waiting for the chakra fruit to complete its final gestation. Soon, half a month flew by. The chakra fruit finally matured completely in a flash of white light. Qingxi raised his hand and took the chakra fruit into his palm, sensing it carefully. Really? Qingxi sighed softly, then put the chakra fruit directly into his mouth. In terms of strength, this chakra fruit is not even as good as the one he took from Otsutsuki Momoshiki at that time. It can only be said that it is better than nothing. However, no matter what, this chakra fruit was born from the energy of an entire living planet. Even if its strength is not high, it is like a towering building rising from the ground. With sufficient accumulation, it can still allow Qingxi to gain new bloodline network abilities on the existing basis. However, judging from the level of this chakra fruit, it would probably take at least dozens of them to complete the transformation from quantity to quality. After a few breaths, Qingxi successfully completed the absorption of the chakra fruit. Next, it is time to deal with Otsutsuki Yoshishiki's 10-tailed divine tree. Feeling the greed that the 10 tails was constantly conveying to him, Seiji and Kagaya looked at each other and reached a consensus. Then, the two of them commanded their respective 10 tails to devour the sacred tree in front of them, which had grown a lot bigger in the process of nurturing the chakra fruit. The 10 tails is the most wonderful tonic for the 10 tails. Even if the 10 tails in front of us is divided by the 10 tails of Seiji and Kagaya, its effect on growth is roughly equivalent to the gestation of several chakra fruits. Roar! The 10 tails of Seiji and Kagaya raised their heads and roared at the same time. The sound was deafening, piercing through the thick clouds and reaching the sky. Their single eyes, flashing scarlet like 2 blood moons, seemed to have seen some unparalleled delicacy, revealing an extreme desire for further growth. As the roars sounded, the bodies of the 10 tails began to change instantly. Countless roots, like bamboo shoots after rain, emerged from the bodies of the 10 tails, and then grew and spread rapidly, like agile tentacles, dancing in the air at an astonishing speed, and then accurately wrapped around the sacred tree that had lost its owner and was surrounded by them. In the blink of an eye, these roots tightly wrapped the sacred tree, forming an impenetrable net. Swallow and absorb. Here we go. Not long after, under the crazy sucking of the 10 tails, the divine tree completely withered, while the 10 tails of Seiji and Kagaya were constantly vibrating with overflowing chakra, and their bodies also grew a lot bigger. Afterwards, after finishing their business here, Seiji and Kagaya set out on their journey to the Otsutsuki ancestral planet again. However, before setting off, Qingxi first went to an asteroid belt near this planet, and used Sheoming Biguna to shrink most of them into small stones and stored them in the Takamagahara space. After all, in battle, the feeling of having a massive swarm of meteorites smash into your face is really awesome. Moreover, with Qingxi's current strength, doing so would not consume too much energy. In the following year, Seiji and Keigaya once again, appropriately, harvested several chakra fruits on the road. This also means that they have harvested several chakra pills refined by the Otsutsuki. After all, there will be an Otsutsuki member guarding every chakra fruit that is about to mature. It is worth mentioning that after each of them swallowed several chakra fruits, Keigaya obtained the same bloodline network ability as Otsutsuki Momoshiki, High Emperor Spirit Son, and Seiji obtained a bloodline network ability called the End of the Quest Ball. Although both are abilities related to the Truth-Seeking Jade, in terms of expression, the Final Truth-Seeking Jade is very different from the Expansion Truth-Seeking Jade that Qingxi has already mastered. If we use an analogy to describe it, the Expanding Truth-Seeking Ball can be compared to the Keke-Gora version sublimated from the Ten Tails Beast Ball, while the End of Truth-Seeking Ball is more like the Keke-Gora version of Kinrin Tensai Baku. After the End of the Quest for the Truth Jade, it also replaced the expansion of the Quest for the Truth Jade, and became the most powerful attack that Qingxi now possesses. In addition, as for the 10 tails belonging to Seiji and Keigaya, it naturally grew to a size comparable to that of an ordinary life planet with the supply of these chakra pills and several 10 tails divine trees as trophies. Otsutsuki Star Region, Otsutsuki Galaxy, an extremely huge planet, which is hundreds or thousands of times larger than the planet where the ninja world is located, seems to violate the cosmic rules of planetary rotation and revolution in a very natural way, and hangs quietly in the central area of the galaxy. What is even more bizarre is that in this galaxy, there are 3 suns emitting scorching light, shining from 3 different directions at the same time and from a distance on the huge planet in the center of the galaxy. Not far away from the huge planet, there is a thick star ring with various buildings. Moreover, on the star ring, there are giant beasts as big as mountains or even as big as asteroids. Behind these giant beasts, thick tails are swinging freely. In addition, on that huge planet, there were also giant beasts lying quietly on the ground. However, even those that were as big as asteroids, and even the 10 tails that Seiji had seen before, which belonged to the Otsutsuki ancestor and was big enough to span a pair of Gemini stars, were just like an inconspicuous hill in front of this super-sized planet. This incredibly huge planet is the ancestral planet of the Otsutsuki clan. Even a normal star, compared to it, is like the difference between an ant and a giant. Of course, the Otsutsuki ancestral planet, and even the galaxy named after the Otsutsuki where it is located, were not originally like this. A long time ago, this place was no different from other galaxies. It had stars, planets, satellites, asteroid belts, and so on. Even the Otsutsuki ancestral planet was just a normal-sized planet. However, with the continuous transformation of the top Otsutsuki masters of all generations, the scale of the Otsutsuki ancestral planet has continued to expand, and other planets in the entire galaxy have been continuously cleared. Even the original only star, the Sun, has been upgraded to the Shuming Biguna of the bloodline net level by the Otsutsuki masters, and 2 more have been moved from other galaxies. In the end, the extremely large Otsutsuki ancestral planet was formed today, as well as a clean Otsutsuki galaxy with no other planets existing, only the Otsutsuki ancestral planet and 3 suns. Outside the Otsutsuki galaxy, a black pixelated space passage slowly emerged in the void. Immediately, Seiji and Keigaya, holding hands, slowly walked out of it. Is this the ancestral planet of the Otsutsuki? An inexplicable gleam flashed in Tensai's eyes, and Seiji confirmed with Keigaya. Although he had Ashiki Otsutsuki's memories of the Otsutsuki ancestral planet, Keigaya, who had actually been to the Otsutsuki ancestral planet, was right next to him. Therefore, in order to avoid finding the wrong place, Seiji still needed Kagaya to confirm it. Yes, Kagaya breathed a sigh of relief, and a trace of inexplicable complex emotions flashed in her white eyes. This is the Otsutsuki ancestral planet. After a slight pause, Kagaya gathered her complicated thoughts and asked, "How should we do this?" Both she and Kiyoshi are now in a hostile stance towards the Otsutsuki clan. Moreover, because their target is the chakra fruit and they have already killed many Otsutsuki, there is no possibility of reconciliation between them and the Otsutsuki clan. Of course, there is no need for the two of them to reconcile with the Otsutsuki clan. After all, the strongest combat force of the Otsutsuki clan now is only at the top 6 paths level like the two of them. Even, to a certain extent, with the blessing of the unreasonable bloodline network ability of God Emperor-born Spirit Lord, the strength that Qingxi can burst out is faintly beyond the limit of the 6 paths level. Not to mention, there are only a few top-level 6 paths masters in the Otsutsuki clan. Although the Otsutsuki clan has been planting trees for an unknown period of time in the countless star fields they control, and has produced an unknown number of chakra fruits, with the strength of only 1% or even 1,000th of that in the ninja world, it is simply not enough to support a strong person beyond the 6 paths level. So, no need to say anything, just do it. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. With the blessing of God Emperor Chan Reizun, on the inside of the Samsara Eye, Qingxi carefully observed the Otsutsuki ancestral planet from an extremely long distance outside the galaxy. After a moment, Seiji withdrew his gaze and exchanged some specific information about the members of the Otsutsuki clan with Kagaya beside him, and made a decision in his heart. In his perception just now, in the central castle of the Otsutsuki ancestral planet, there was an extremely powerful chakra reaction that was obviously much stronger than other chakras. Combining Otsutsuki Ashiki's memories and Kagaya's information, this chakra reaction is none other than the current head of the Otsutsuki clan, Otsutsuki Harashiki. Therefore, to catch a thief, you must first catch the leader. First, work together to use the majority against the minority, quickly kill the strongest Otsutsuki Genshiki, and then turn around to deal with the other Otsutsuki, and make the center of the Otsutsuki clan flourish. After all, decapitation tactics will never be out of date, no matter when or where. Otsutsuki Ancestor Star. Inside the central castle hall, a man with a pair of large horns on his head that looked very similar to a crown, wearing a black robe that was completely different from the traditional Otsutsuki, and with long, smooth hair, was sitting cross-legged in the upper seat of the hall with his eyes closed. It was none other than the patriarch of the Otsutsuki clan, Otsutsuki Harashiki. Now, it is the time once every 100 years when the tribesmen who go out to carry out tree-planting tasks will bring the harvested chakra fruits back to the Otsutsuki ancestral planet. Therefore, as the clan leader who enjoys a certain quota in the clan, Otsutsuki Harashiki couldn't help but feel a little anxious and expectant in his heart. Although swallowing the chakra fruit no longer has any effect on improving his strength, after all, the comfortable feeling of floating in the air, as if flying freely in the clouds, sky and even the starry sky, is something that nothing else can bring. However, at this moment, a strange feeling of being spied on made Otsutsuki Harashiki suddenly open his eyes. A dazzling golden light flashed out from his eye sockets, but quickly subsided in an instant. Who is it? Low murmurs echoed in the castle hall. With his level of strength, there wouldn't be any feeling that shouldn't appear. Since he noticed it, it meant that someone was indeed spying on him just now. However, before he could spread his perception and find the madman who dared to spy on him, the leader of the Otsutsuki clan, a black pixelated space channel quickly took shape in the castle hall. Yomi Hirasaka, which has the power 10 times that of Shenhuang Chanlingzhen, is extremely fast. Therefore, when Otsutsuki Harashiki just sensed the fluctuation of space and was about to respond, Seiji had already smoothly activated his other bloodline net ability. Aim no Michu, the multiplied power of Shenhuang Chanlingzhen, instantly changed the target of the blessing, and Otsutsuki Harashiki was instantly forced to be teleported to Qingji's starting ball space. Although Otsutsuki Harashiki realized at the moment when Aim no Michu was launched that some daring younger members of the clan came to attack him, the patriarch of the Otsutsuki clan, but facing the amplification blessing of Shinhuang Chan Reizun, he still could not escape the forced transmission of Aim no Michu on him. But the sudden change of space did not make Otsutsuki Harashiki panic at all. Although he was unable to escape just now, Aim no Mikado is also one of the bloodline network abilities he possessed. Immediately, a crack appeared in the center of Otsutsuki Harashiki's forehead, and the Rinnegan opened in an instant, emitting a scarlet glow. Endless and terrifying pupil power burst out in an instant, causing circles of spatial ripples and waves in Chinxi's entire starting sphere space. However, the next moment, Otsutsuki Harashiki's face became extremely ugly and completely gloomy. Because he found that his Ten no Michu could not allow him to escape from the opponent's starting space. In other words, his bloodline net ability is not as strong as his opponent's. Impossible. Otsutsuki Harashiki's pupils shrank sharply, and a barely perceptible look of surprise and uncertainty flashed in his golden eyes of reincarnation. As the patriarch of the Otsutsuki clan and the strongest member of the Otsutsuki clan today, Otsutsuki Harashiki simply couldn't believe that he would be at a disadvantage in the bloodline network competition with the younger members of the clan. You know, ever since he lost to a fellow tribesman named Juju by a single move 20,000 years ago. He had never lost a battle, and he had never even experienced being at a disadvantage in a battle. But now, Otsutsuki Shibai, who was once half as good as him, has long disappeared in the long river of time. Although there were rumors within the clan that he had become the Otsutsuki god who only existed in the clan's legends, Harashiki was confident that it was just a rumor without any basis. As the leader of the Otsutsuki clan, Otsutsuki Harashiki knew clearly that among the countless star fields controlled by their Otsutsuki clan, there were no life planets that could produce top-grade chakra fruits. As for those ordinary chakra fruits, it is simply impossible for them to enhance the strength of those who have already reached the limit of the Six Paths level. Otherwise, with his status as the patriarch of the Otsutsuki clan, after so many years of accumulation, he should have surpassed the Six Paths level long ago and become the Otsutsuki god that only exists in the legend. Therefore, impossible, absolutely impossible. However, Seiji doesn't care what Otsutsuki Harashiki thinks. After forcibly sending it to his starting space, Seiji and Kagaya followed closely behind and entered the starting space the next moment. Then, without any pause, the two of them exploded the moment they entered the starting space. Heaven always establishes his respect. The Divine Emperor produces 10 times the spiritual lord. Qingji started to control the time domain, and in an instant the time domain descended around Otsutsuki Harashiki, slowing down the flow of time near him to almost a stop. You are the original one. Expanding Tao-seeking Jade. At the same time, Kagaya also launched her strongest attack. An extremely dazzling white light suddenly bloomed in the starting space, so strong that people could not look directly at it, as if the entire space was swallowed up by this white light at this moment. Along with the flash of white light, a violent roar and explosion sounded throughout the entire starting space, deafening. Under the impact of this extremely violent explosion, the space in the original sphere began to vibrate continuously, as if a huge space storm was raging. Whoosh! But immediately afterwards, before the aftermath of the explosion had completely dissipated, a black shadow shot out from the center of the explosion and rushed into the air at a very fast speed. It was Otsutsuki Harashiki who had just been hit head-on by the expanding truth-seeking ball. It turned out that before being engulfed by the explosion of the expanding truth-seeking ball, Otsutsuki Harashiki had already broken through the control of Seiji's Tenho Raizen, and used the bloodline network ability called Daru Shen, to defend himself tightly and safely withstand the impact of this terrifying explosion. Otsutsuki Harashiki is no stranger to the bloodline gathering ability of Tenho Raizen. After all, it was because of the influence of the time field of Tenho Raizen that he lost to Otsutsuki Shibai by a single move. Therefore, although Otsutsuki Shibai has lost contact, over the years he has already developed a way to fight against the time field of Tenho Rinsen. No one understands, heaven is always supreme, better than him. Then, after the defense of Darushen faded, Otsutsuki Harashiki chose to use his strong body that had been honed for tens of thousands of years to withstand the aftermath of the explosion, and then rushed out from it with lightning speed and went straight to Qingxi. Because he has confirmed through the fluctuations of his eye power and chakra that Qingxi is the master of this original spherical space. And since he couldn't leave for the time being, it was very simple. He just had to kill the owner of the original space. Moreover, he was attacked by two younger members of the clan for no reason, and then was hit by a massive explosion from the expanding truth-seeking ball, at the moment of forced spatial transformation. This made Otsutsuki Harashiki, who had been as calm as still water since he became the clan leader and the strongest person in the clan, extremely angry. No one from the tribe has ever dared to challenge his authority like this. This is a provocation to him as the patriarch. The overwhelming, cold murderous intent enveloped Qingxi. Of course, Kagaya, who was not far from Qingxi, was also not spared by Otsutsuki Harashiki. Although his main target was Seiji, he also took care of Kagaya by the way. In his opinion, it was not a big problem. After all, he was the strongest in the Otsutsuki clan, and the other party was just two younger members of the clan who had some skills. Icicle 99. In an instant, countless thick icicles appeared out of thin air beside Otsutsuki Harashiki, and then under his control, they smashed towards Seiji and Kagaya first. This is the large-scale attack bloodline network mastered by Otsutsuki Genshiki. As his first wave of exploratory strikes, it can be said to be just right. However, Qingxi does not have the habit of launching a tentative attack right at the beginning of a battle. If he has the numbers to crush Otsutsuki Harashiki, then he doesn't mind practicing and having some fun with him. But it is obvious that his strength is not enough to crush Otsutsuki Harashiki directly. Then, after exchanging glances with Kagaya, Seiji instantly opened the space channel of Yomi Hirasaka and disappeared on the spot. When he appeared again, he appeared directly behind Otsutsuki Harashiki. While perfectly avoiding the attack of the icicle, he kicked Otsutsuki Harashiki in the back with all his strength. A mortal magic instantaneous burial. The Divine Emperor produces 10 times the Spiritual Lord. HMPH. I've been on guard against you, youngster. Otsutsuki Harashiki had a grim smile on his face. He turned around and punched out the moment before Seiji's attack arrived, with unparalleled force, hitting the sole of Seiji's foot hard. Boom! A dull but sharp and violent vibration sound suddenly erupted, and the triumphant smile on Otsutsuki Harashiki's face disappeared at the speed of light the moment the fists and feet made contact. This power is wrong. Immediately, before Otsutsuki Genshiki could react, his entire body was uncontrollably sent flying backwards by Seiji's kick with 10 times the power, and hit the ground in the starting space heavily. All of a sudden, loud rumbling noises were heard one after another, and mixed dust and gravel flew everywhere like a swarm of disturbed bees. The earth cracked and shattered in an instant, forming hideous spider web-like cracks that quickly spread out in all directions. After a few breaths, Otsutsuki Harashiki flew up from the ground with a gloomy face. And at the corner of his mouth, there was a glaring red bloodstain. Dash 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 dash. Okunanushi is the guardian deity in Japanese mythology. He possesses great power and protects the peace and prosperity of the country. Before he was enthroned by Susanoo, he was also known as Origin. Susanoo no Miku-sama is a bloodline-binding ability unique to Otsutsuki Harashiki. At least, there has never been a second one in the history of the Otsutsuki clan. Its function is to cooperate with the Ten Tails in combat. If we understand it simply, we can regard it as a bloodline version of Power Susanoo. Then, just as countless meteorites falling from the sky began to bombard the Ten Tails continuously, an endless ocean of chakra appeared out of thin air. An extremely heavy chakra armor suddenly appeared on the surface of the Ten Tails' body, fully arming it. Meteorites hit the chakra armor, causing violent vibrations and collisions. Pieces of chakra fragments of varying sizes fell off under the impact, flying in the air and finally falling to the ground, creating large holes. At the same time, Tentails that were thick enough to block the vision were twitching wildly, blowing up the incoming meteorites in midair. Boom! Huge spatial ripples continuously spread out from the point of collision, and the space within the sphere trembled violently. But at this moment, along with the sharp and piercing sound, in an instant, an extremely dazzling golden light bloomed. A brilliant golden light that is difficult to describe in words flashed across the sky like lightning. Endless hope was intertwined with equal despair. The two extreme emotions collided and intertwined in the dazzling scene. In that instant, an almost unrecognizable 1/100th of a second later, the space of the original sphere, which had been slightly dark and gloomy due to the appearance of the planet-sized tentails, was illuminated as bright as day. The light was so strong that it seemed to pierce through all the darkness, and even more so to dispel all the shadows in the original sphere space. At this moment, Otsutsuki Harashiki, who was controlling the tentails with the blessing of Susanoo no Miku-sama, to clear and counterattack the meteor falling from the sky, was also drowned in the extreme light and chaotic chakra fluctuations in that instant, and almost lost all vision and perception. At this moment, a clear trajectory of light appeared in the field of vision, like a meteor in the night sky, shuttling through the starry sky. And among these golden lights, a huge golden sword with a sharp edge that is so dazzling that it is blinding is extending unstoppably. Wherever it passed, the void collapsed, the air twisted, and the glow retreated, making everything in the original sphere space seem to have pressed the pause button at this moment. The end. Otsutsuki Harashiki muttered subconsciously, his mind in a trance. However, in a moment, Otsutsuki Harashiki came out of this chaotic state, and soon after, his vision and perception were restored. However, what greeted him the next second was the miserable howling of pain and madness from his tentails. A vertical cut emitting terrifying chakra fluctuations was clearly reflected in Otsutsuki Harashiki's golden eyes. No matter whether it was the Susanoo no Miku-sun that he bestowed on the tentail's body, or the tentail's already extremely strong body defense, nothing could stop Shinji's full-strength attack at this moment. What was even more terrifying was that this golden giant sword that had pierced the sky and everything in it, after splitting the tentails in two, not only did its power not diminish at all, but it even extended all the way deep into the ground until it touched the boundary at the very bottom. With this blow, the entire land of the original sphere space was cut into two parts, and in it, even a bottomless and spectacular wide abyss rift was formed. This is the most powerful attack bloodline network that Qingxi possesses now, the ultimate explosion under the full amplification of God Emperor-born Spirit Lord. The end of seeking the Tao Jade. Qingxi's eyes showed no sadness or joy. Only the brilliant golden light reflected and contrasted with it could leave some traces of the golden sword that disappeared into thin air in his calm and indifferent sight at this moment. There is no need to elaborate on the subsequent battle process. The final seeking the way Jade, with 10 times the power, became the last straw that overwhelmed the scales of victory and defeat in the battle and decided the final winner. After cutting the Otsutsuki Harashiki's tentails into two pieces with one strike, Seiji did not hesitate to use the end of the truth ball to pursue it, cutting across the tentail's body horizontally, completely suppressing it, and then releasing the tentails to devour it. Of course, Keigaya's tentails was also released by Keigaya, who had consumed most of her chakra. As for Otsutsuki Harashiki, who had lost the support of the tentails, after fighting with Seiji for dozens of rounds, Keigaya, who had recovered, seized the opportunity and launched a sneak attack on him. He was eventually temporarily imprisoned and sealed by Seiji, who only waited for the two of them to finish devouring the tentails and then refine it into a delicious chakra pill. Half a month later, two extremely thick and tall sacred trees stood in Qingxi's original space. Their bark showed an ancient and mysterious texture, and the huge crown was like a canopy, extending and stretching to the extreme. The tentails of Otsutsuki Harashiki was completely devoured. As for Seiji and Keigaya's tentails, they received a significant improvement in this feast, and this improvement could be seen just from their body size. Compared with before, the size of the two tentails has expanded dozens of times. Although it is still not as big as the planet-like size of Otsutsuki Harashi's 10 tails, it is not far behind. According to Qingji's rough estimate, if he plants another 10 or 8 trees, or if there is another larger 10 tails for his 10 tails to devour, it should be able to grow to the level of Otsutsuki Harashiki's 10 tails. Afterwards, Seiji and Kagaya each retracted their respective 10 tails into their bodies. Next, it is the turn of Otsutsuki Harashiki, the patriarch of the Otsutsuki clan, to meet his end. However, before refining it into a chakra pill, Qingji still had to dig out all the information he knew about the Otsutsuki clan and all the star regions ruled by the Otsutsuki clan. The seal slowly opened, and Otsutsuki Harashiki, who was trapped inside and had lost the concept of time, was finally able to move his body, which was bruised and battered by Seiji. However, even so, Otsutsuki Harashiki had no intention of letting go of his extremely arrogant attitude, nor did he beg for mercy from Seiji. Instead, he uttered harsh threats with a gloomy face. As the actual ruler of the countless star fields owned by the Otsutsuki clan for tens of thousands of years, he was defeated, but it was impossible for him to admit defeat or even submit. Not to mention, he had left a weapon, with a wedge, already driven in on the Otsutsuki ancestral planet. Therefore, Otsutsuki Harashiki has nothing to fear at all. He just needs to wait for his body to be killed by these two daring juniors, and then he can immediately use the characteristics of the wedge to revive from the Otsutsuki ancestral planet and make a comeback. As for his 10 tails that had been completely devoured, although it would have some impact on his combat power, the impact was not that great after all. Moreover, since he had already confirmed that he was not yet a match for Qingxi, he could just gather people and fight them side by side. After all, the Otsutsuki ancestral planet is the home turf of him, the patriarch of the Otsutsuki clan. However, Seiji did not take Otsutsuki Harashiki's threats seriously. He knew very well that Otsutsuki Harashiki behaved in this way simply because he relied on the characteristics of the wedge. However, since he was able to punish Otsutsuki Harashiki once, it means that Otsutsuki Harashiki is no longer a threat to him, and it is just a matter of fighting again. Then, without paying any more attention to Otsutsuki Harashiki's nonsense, Qingxi slapped his hand on the top of his head, and the power of the Rinnegan burst out, and he began to forcibly search Otsutsuki Harashiki's memory. As the ultimate form of the Rinnegan naturally also has the ability to read memories called heart diving in the human world. Since you don't cooperate, then I'll just look for it in your mind myself. Soon, Seiji found the information he wanted in Otsutsuki Harashiki's mind. This information also allowed Qingji to thoroughly understand the current situation of the Otsutsuki clan and the situation of the star regions ruled by the Otsutsuki clan. And, in addition, Seiji also learned information about the legendary Otsutsuki Shibai. From Otsutsuki Harashiki's memory, we know that the last time Otsutsuki Shibai sent news back to the clan was in the direction of the star field where the planet in the ninja world was located. Therefore, Seiji, who had already had reasonable speculations about whether Otsutsuki Shibai was transcendent and whether the ninja world belonged to Otsutsuki Shibai in the distant past, finally had more definite evidence through the mutual confirmation of the information he had previously possessed and the latest intelligence he had obtained. After all, there is a huge gap in information and cognition between him and Otsutsuki Harashiki. The reason why Otsutsuki Harashiki did not believe the rumor that Otsutsuki Shibai had become the god of Otsutsuki was precisely because he could not imagine that in one of the countless star fields under the jurisdiction of his Otsutsuki clan, there would be a top-level nursery in the ninja world that could produce top-grade chakra fruits, and even one chakra fruit that was equivalent to hundreds of ordinary chakra fruits. Of course, it was an accident that Otsutsuki Shibai found this place in the ninja world. After all, the galaxy and even the star field where the planet of the ninja world is located is too remote and too far away from the Otsutsuki ancestral planet. You know, it took Seiji and Kagaya nearly 2 years to reach the Otsutsuki ancestral planet, starting from the ninja world and continuously making space jumps through Yomi Hirasaka, without taking any detours. All I can say is that time is destiny. If Otsutsuki Harashiki had gone to the ninja world to investigate earlier, the ninja world, which is considered the top nursery in the universe, would have been exposed to him long ago, and he could have used this to become the legendary Otsutsuki god. This also pointed out the direction for Qingxi to improve further. Now that the truth of the Otsutsuki Shibai story has been confirmed, it means that if he devours enough of this top-level chakra fruit produced by the ninja world, he can also become the legendary Otsutsuki god. However, Qingxi still has some doubts about this. Although he had no concrete evidence, he seriously suspected that there might be some problem with Otsutsuki Shibai's ascension. Because, according to what Otsutsuki Momoshiki had speculated in casual conversation, Otsutsuki Shibai achieved ascension across dimensions by abandoning his physical body. But in Qingji's opinion, even if the body is not that important to the Otsutsuki clan who have the unreasonable ability of wedge, there is no reason to abandon the body if it can be brought across dimensions. Therefore, Qingji believes that Otsutsuki Shibai may have surpassed the Six Paths level in strength and has really become the legendary god of Otsutsuki, but this so-called god of Otsutsuki is probably not that complete. Gathering his scattered thoughts, Qingxi looked at the Otsutsuki Genshiki in his hand, which had completely lost its resistance after he forcibly searched its soul, and then activated the bloodline network ability, Shichi Lianden. In an instant, Otsutsuki Genshiki was transformed into a huge red chakra pill by Qingji. However, Qingxi temporarily put the chakra pill into the space of Takamagahara with a flip of his hand. Although the Ten Tails did not have indigestion, he still decided to let the Ten Tails absorb the chakra pill after a while. Afterwards, after greeting Kagaya who was waiting not far away, Seiji activated Ain no Michu, and took Kagaya out of his starting space. Otsutsuki, the future god of Otsutsuki, has come to rule over you. The Otsutsuki ancestral planet is a remote place with no human habitation within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers. Suddenly, accompanied by a deafening explosion, the ground cracked instantly, and a figure emitting visible anger all over his body suddenly jumped out from the ground. It is Otsutsuki Harashiki who was resurrected using the wedge. Damn. Otsutsuki Harashiki is almost going crazy. He never imagined that he, the strongest in his clan, would be defeated by two juniors whose names he didn't even know. To be more precise, he was defeated by one of them. Furthermore, the other party had forcibly searched his soul and then killed him directly. Boundless murderous aura, mixed with extremely cold and stern murderous intent, gushed out from Otsutsuki Harashiki's body uncontrollably. Immediately, a thick beam of chakra light shot up into the sky with Otsutsuki Harashiki's body as the starting point, forming an extremely large and strange pattern shining with colorful light in the sky of the Otsutsuki ancestral planet. Otsutsuki Harashiki, here comes the call. After all, he is the patriarch of the Otsutsuki clan. Since he already knew that he was no match for his opponent and was actually killed once, which made him activate the weapon he had prepared long ago, then it became a natural thing for him to let go of his pride as the former strongest of the clan and choose to call for help. Moreover, you have to know that although the opponent is stronger than him, he has not surpassed the limit of the Six Paths level. Therefore, the strategy of taking advantage of overwhelming numerical advantage and defeating the master with random punches is feasible. However, Otsutsuki Harashiki did not know that his actions were exactly what Seiji wanted. At the same time that Otsutsuki Genshiki completed his reincarnation and resurrection through the wedge, Seiji and Kagaya also returned to the Otsutsuki ancestral planet from the original sphere space, and they blocked their own breath and hid in the Otsutsuki ancestral planet. At this moment, what the two of them were waiting for was for Otsutsuki Harashiki to call all his loyal fans in the Otsutsuki clan together, so that they could catch them all in one clean and neat move. You know, before fighting with Otsutsuki Harashiki, although Seiji was very confident in his own strength and knew that his strength had reached the limit of the Six Paths level, he had never had a real fight with Otsutsuki Harashiki, a strong man who had reached the same level as him. Therefore, he only had a vague idea of his own strength level before. But now, Seiji has realized that both he and Kagaya are the strongest in the current Otsutsuki clan. Kagaya is okay. In terms of combat power alone, she is on par with Otsutsuki Harashiki. But he is different. With the blessing of the bloodline network ability, Shinwangshanlingzhen, even a strong man like Otsutsuki Harashiki, who is also at the limit of the 6 paths level, cannot withstand his attack. Therefore, it is no exaggeration to say that he is now the strongest in the Otsutsuki clan, and even in this universe. No rival. Soon, one after another, Otsutsuki exuding a terrifying aura appeared around Otsutsuki Harashiki. The black pixel-shaped, Yomi Hirasaka, space channel gradually closed slowly. The Otsutsuki clan members who were summoned by Otsutsuki Harashiki were all strong people who had achieved the bloodline network. Even that Yomi Hirasaka, that Otsutsuki Momoshiki could not master was just a standard feature for them. After all, Otsutsuki Harashiki knew very well that those clansmen who did not have the bloodline network would not even be able to serve as a serving of food in front of Seiji and Kagaya. Lord Patriarch. Many Otsutsuki bowed slightly and paid their respects to Otsutsuki Harashiki. In their cognition, Otsutsuki Harashiki at this time is still the strongest of their Otsutsuki clan. 2 lunatics have sneaked into Zuxing, Otsutsuki Harashiki gave orders with a gloomy face that looked like it was about to drip with water. However, he hadn't finished yet. The 2 expanding truth-seeking orbs that were on the verge of exploding passed through Seiji's Yomi Hirasaka space channel and landed above the Otsutsuki. At the same time, they were accompanied by Seiji's slightly sarcastic thanks that came through the space channel. Thank you so much, Otsutsuki Harashiki. At the same time as the words fell, 2 expanding truth-seeking orbs exploded above the heads of the Otsutsuki. Moreover, one of them is the expanding Tao-seeking jade, blessed by Qingxi with the God Emperor's spiritual master, which has 10 times the power. Of course, Seiji had no intention of destroying the Otsutsuki ancestral planet. After all, the Otsutsuki ancestral planet is hundreds or thousands of times larger than the planet where the ninja world is located. It can easily withstand just 2 expanding truth-seeking orbs, even if one of them can explode with 10 times the power. All of a sudden, first, a dazzling white light suddenly appeared, more scorching than 1,000 suns exploding at the same time, and instantly engulfed everyone present. This dead and silent land, where no other Otsutsuki clan members had set foot for tens of thousands of years, was torn apart in an instant. Even the air was boiling in the light, rippling with golden and red ripples. The roar exploded half a beat late, not with a loud sound, but with a pressing sound, hitting everyone's eardrums heavily, making the bones beneath the membranes vibrate with a buzzing sound. The next moment, a violent gust of wind swept over like an invisible giant hand, cracking and shaking the ground, and a large amount of dust and gravel were raised. The extremely high temperature heat wave burned them into tiny fireballs, dragging sparks into the gray fog, and swirled into the base of the mushroom cloud. Boom! 2 mushroom clouds, one large and one small, suddenly rose up and then rose rapidly. The clouds on the top were also dyed into a strange pink and purple color at the same time, but the bottom was pressing down darkly, covering most of the sky above. The sky darkened instantly, and the smell of burning and dust mixed together to form a strange fragrance. The 2 Otsutsuki who were called over by Otsutsuki Harashiki were reduced to ashes and no trace of their bodies was left in these 2 horrific explosions that happened almost at the same time before they could play any role. Although the other Otsutsuki did not die directly under the 2 expanding truth-seeking balls, they were also badly injured and lost most of their combat power. Only Otsutsuki Genshiki, relying on his bloodline net ability, Daru Shen, blocked the first wave of the explosion and launched Aim no Michu in time to go to his own starting space, barely avoiding the subsequent damage and not suffering any trauma. However, When Otsutsuki Harashiki calculated the time and was ready to return to the Otsutsuki ancestral planet from the original sphere space, Seiji and Kagaya had already crossed the space channel, descended in person, and sealed up the few surviving Otsutsuki at the fastest speed, like cutting melons and vegetables. Beautiful. I got a few more high-quality chakra pills. Otsutsuki Harashiki is such a good person. It's not enough to deliver it by yourself. He also called all his men to come and send it off together. After completing the sealing of several Otsutsuki, Seiji and Kagaya smiled at each other, their hearts filled with gratitude towards the clan leader Otsutsuki Harashiki. Then, the moment Otsutsuki Genshiki returned to the Otsutsuki ancestral planet, he was faced with the end of the truth-seeking ball, which was 10 times more powerful than before and unleashed by Seiji again. The golden sword flashed, and Otsutsuki Harashiki's bloodline network ability, Great Ru God, failed to play any blocking role, and the upper limit of his defense was directly broken. And Otsutsuki Harashiki, as expected, was directly split into 2 parts by this blow. At this point, Otsutsuki Harashiki, who had just been resurrected through the wedge, fell again. And this time, there is no longer any device with a wedge engraved on it, which can give it another chance to make a comeback. The patriarch of the Otsutsuki clan, Otsutsuki Harashiki, is dead. The plain but extremely warm family reunion time passed by quickly. In a flash, 9 years passed and time entered the 62nd year of Kirigakure. During these 9 years, Shinji planted trees 9 times in the ninja world, almost once a year. This means that Shinji currently has 9 of the most top-grade chakra fruits in the universe. Normally speaking, even the best nursery in the ninja world cannot withstand the frequent plundering of natural energy and harvesting of chakra by the 10 Tails Divine Tree. But who can blame Shinji for being so wise? The reason why he left behind most of the ninjas from other ninja villages during the war was to lay a solid foundation for his sustainable tree planting. The ninja world's 1 year recovery and recuperation, coupled with the endless circulation of chakra in the bodies of ninjas whose number has increased to more than 100,000 in recent years, has allowed Shinji to harvest a chakra fruit every year. You know, it took other Otsutsuki dozens or even hundreds of years to plant the sacred trees on the planets of life. Even Otsutsuki Shibai, who once planted trees in the ninja world and eventually surpassed the 6 paths level and completed ascension with the help of the ninja world's chakra fruit, had to wait for hundreds of years before he could harvest a chakra fruit. As for why it was Seiji who was responsible for planting trees every time during these 9 years, it was because Kagaya became pregnant in the 2nd year, which was the 54th year of Kirigakure. After another 3 years, Kagaya finally gave birth to a baby girl in the 57th year of Kirigakure. And this newborn Otsutsuki cub was named by his father, Seiji. Otsutsuki Ruri. Thanks to Seiji and Kagaya's Otsutsuki bloodline that has evolved to the extreme, and Kagaya's wholehearted nurturing over the past 3 years, Seiji even took out a few chakra fruits brought back from the Otsutsuki ancestral planet and gave them to Kagaya to swallow to provide enough energy for the child. Therefore, as soon as Otsutsuki Ruri was born, she possessed a solid foundation and extremely strong strength that the entire Otsutsuki clan would envy. After all, ordinary Otsutsuki have to spend a long time collecting chakra, or swallow an ordinary chakra fruit, before their strength can reach the 6 paths level. Moreover, in the Otsutsuki ancestral planet, there are quite a few clansmen whose strength has not reached the 6 paths level. Yes, that's right. The chakra aura emitted by the newborn cubs, Seiji and Kagaya, surprisingly reached the 6 paths level. Dash 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 dash. The land of water, the hidden mist village. Shinji sat cross-legged on the top of the long-abandoned and deserted Mizukage building, staring into the distance with empty and unfocused eyes, and scenes of the various ties he had experienced along the way kept flashing through his mind. Finally, the image in Shinji's mind froze on his daughter Luli's angelic smile. It's time. Shinji exhaled lightly and murmured softly. While a hint of tenderness appeared in his eyes, a hint of determination also flashed across his eyes. According to his calculations, the 9 chakra fruits produced by the ninja world are enough to bring about a qualitative change, allowing him to surpass the 6 paths level. Immediately, without any hesitation, Qingxi waved his hand and took out the 9 chakra fruits that had been prepared long ago from the Takamagahara space, and then put them into his mouth all at once. The chakra fruit, which emitted a hazy white light, transformed into strands of chakra of extremely high quality and surging quantity the moment it entered the mouth. Qingxi slowly closed his eyes. The chakra, which was far more powerful than the chakra in Qingxi's body, swirled and roared rapidly in the meridians. In the blink of an eye, it spread to all parts of Qingxi's body. Then, right after, as the massive amount of chakra transformed from the chakra fruit exploded in the body, a feeling suddenly arose that the meridians and body were about to explode. Puff! Suddenly, Qingxi spat out a large mouthful of bright red blood as if he had been hit hard in the abdomen. His whole body became weak instantly, drops of cold sweat kept sliding down his face, and his body involuntarily spasmed and trembled at this moment. Wave after wave of pain like needles pricking him continuously attacked from all parts of his body, and at this moment the chakra in Qingxi's body began to spread out uncontrollably. The blood and energy surged, and the chakra continued to rage and impact in the body. Qingxi's whole body sometimes felt cold as if he had fallen into an ice cave, with difficulty breathing, and sometimes it felt like he had fallen into a raging fire, with a burning feeling spreading throughout his body. Extreme cold and extreme heat, alternating rapidly. However, this alone was still within Qingxi's tolerance, and it did not exceed his expectations before he started. You know, when Qingji became the 10 Tails Jinchuriki, he had already merged with his 10 Tails. This means that while the 10 Tails transformed into the form of a sacred tree to nurture the chakra fruit, and continuously devoured the other 10 tails and chakra pills to grow and evolve, Qingxi's body also received a huge amount of strengthening. Therefore, the energy impact of 9 chakra fruits exploding in the body at the same time, although painful, will not have any excessive impact on Qingxi. Even during this painful process, Qingxi could clearly feel that his body and soul had experienced a slight enhancement under the influence of this massive amount of chakra, and at the same time, his strength, which had been stagnant for a long time, also began to grow unseen for a long time. Feasible, efficient. Although the extreme pain was still coming in waves, Qingxi's heart, which had been hanging in the air and still a little uneasy, finally calmed down. After all, before it actually started, everything was just his speculation. And now, the long-lost feeling of increased strength made him realize that the path he had envisioned, and the method he guessed from the information from Otsutsuki Shibai, was correct. As time slowly passed, the 9 chakra fruits transformed into endless, purest, high-quality chakra, which crushed and reorganized every cell in Qingxi's body in the simplest and crudest way, continuously strengthening Qingxi's physique. At the same time, the enhancement of the physique is fed back to the soul, allowing Qingxi's soul to begin to transform to a stronger level. The stronger soul after the transformation will in turn drive the synchronous growth of the physique, eventually forming a wonderful balance and a perfect closed loop. However, at this time, Qingxi also vaguely understood why Otsutsuki Shibana gave up his physical body in the legendary ascension and transcendence of the clan. The answer is actually very simple. That is, the strength of Otsutsuki Shibai's soul and body do not match. You know, in addition to the growth brought by planting trees, Seiji's 10 tails also devoured several well-developed 10 tails, and even one of them was the extremely perfect 10 tails cultivated by the former patriarch of the Otsutsuki clan, Otsutsuki Harashiki. In addition, it also has the supply of chakra pills refined by Qingji using Otsutsuki. Therefore, thanks to the growth of the 10 tails, Seiji's physical strength has also reached the limit of what the 6 paths level can achieve. But Otsutsuki Shibai is different. His physical strength is only roughly the same as that of Otsutsuki Harashiki, and may even be slightly inferior. After all, he is not the patriarch of the Otsutsuki clan, so he can only rely on planting trees to improve his 10 tails. He also did not master Qingxi's bloodline network ability of Shichi Dan Liandan, which can independently produce chakra pills to accelerate the growth of the 10 tails. He doesn't have as good luck as Qingxi, who can find nutritious things for the 10 tails to eat one after another. After his fight with Otsutsuki Harashiki that year, although he did have a slight advantage by relying on the control of time by Tenho Ritsun, he was still unable to decisively crush Otsutsuki Harashiki. Moreover, he does not have as many fans in the clan as Otsutsuki Harashiki. Therefore, after the war, he left the Otsutsuki ancestral planet alone and began his long wandering in the starry sky of the universe, hoping to find ways to continue to improve his strength. Finally, he came to a star field on the edge of the Otsutsuki clan's rule, and found the ninja world, an excellent nursery that made him ecstatic. And when Otsutsuki Shibai harvested the first chakra fruit in the ninja world and swallowed it, he realized that the opportunity to surpass the 6 paths level had arrived. So, just as Qingxi speculated, without a ninja to act as a power bank, Otsutsuki Shibai went back and forth in the ninja world to plant trees repeatedly. In the end, it took him nearly 10,000 years to accumulate 9 of the top-level chakra fruits. Then, one day, after adjusting his condition, Shibazu, with the help of the 9 chakra fruits that had enough high-quality chakra to cause qualitative changes, successfully surpassed the 6 paths level and fulfilled his obsession of ascending and transcending. However, that was the moment when his strength crossed the invisible barrier and surpassed the 6 paths level. His body, which was slightly weak compared to his soul, collapsed because it could not withstand the energy impact of the 9 chakra fruits exploding instantly in his body. Therefore, this led to the fact that Otsutsuki Shibai did gain strength beyond the 6 paths level to some extent, and in fact completed the ascension and transcendence of the dimension. However, his state was incomplete because he had lost his physical body. In a flash, Qingxi's mind was confirmed as he realized that his previous guess about Otsutsuki Shibai's condition was confirmed. The awe he had felt in his heart for this senior Otsutsuki Shibai also quietly faded away. If successfully surpassing the 6 paths level allows one to become the Otsutsuki god that only exists in the legends of the Otsutsuki clan, then Otsutsuki Shibai may only be called a demigod. Qingxi, feeling slightly encouraged, even subconsciously ignored the severe pain that penetrated deep into his soul. Qingxi slowly opened his eyes, and 2 extremely bright sky blue lights suddenly burst out, but quickly disappeared. Call. Qingxi let out a long breath, and for a moment his expression showed a bit of confusion, as if he was still immersed in the comfortable feeling just now and couldn't extricate himself. Although the entire process of surpassing the 6 paths and becoming the Otsutsuki god actually took only a few hours, in his feeling, time seemed to be stretched out, as if it had passed for a very long time, as if it were another lifetime. Is this what it feels like to be the Otsutsuki god? Qingxi murmured in a low voice, as if asking, but his tone was extremely certain. Then, he gently raised his arm, slightly clenched his palm, and grasped it in the air, as if he was holding the entire ninja world, and even the entire universe and starry sky, in his hands. Qingxi's gaze pierced through the thick layers of clouds and mist, gazing far into the starry sky. It seemed as if his gaze had traversed dimensions, transcending time and space. An incomparable self-confidence rose from the depths of his heart. It was a feeling of being omnipotent and having absolute control over everything. Afterwards, Qingxi suppressed his somewhat excited emotions, thought for a moment, raised his hand, tore the space and time in front of him, and disappeared on the spot. Although he had just entered the space-time turbulence for a brief moment and did not have time to perceive it carefully, he still sensed that there was an extremely obvious chakra aura belonging to the Otsutsuki clan in the endless space-time, but it far exceeded the limit of the 6 paths level. Otsutsuki Shibai. Therefore, it is time to meet him, the predecessor, who has ascended to transcendence first. At the moment when Qingxi's real body entered the space-time channel and then fell into the space-time turbulence, one after another, densely packed and countless water-blue eyes opened, and all their gazes were fixed on Qingxi, who remained motionless under the impact of the space-time turbulence. I've finally waited for this. The Otsutsuki clan. A cold and indifferent voice like a huge bell resounded, as if it came from a distant time and space, extremely far away from Qingxi's position, but it seemed to be right next to his ear, very close. Immediately, A figure that seemed illusory and had large crown-shaped horns like those of the original Otsutsuki slowly condensed in front of Qingxi, and then solidified in an instant. That's right, Otsutsuki Shibai. Looking at Otsutsuki Shibai, who showed up on his own initiative, Qingxi couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly, and a hint of realization suddenly flashed across his sky-blue, sparkling reincarnation eyes. Sure enough, he was right. Something is wrong with Otsutsuki Shibai. Although his body looked extremely real, in the eyes of Seiji, the true god of Otsutsuki, the body of Otsutsuki Shibai that appeared in front of him was filled with rich soul power. In other words, the Otsutsuki Shibai in front of him was actually in the form of a soul body, existing in this turbulence of time and space and even in endless time and space. Therefore, high judgment. Compared to Kiyoshi, although Otsutsuki Shibai has transcended the dimension, he has no physical body and, as Kiyoshi thought, has not truly achieved the same Otsutsuki god as Kiyoshi. Instead, it is stuck in an awkward state that seems neither up nor down. However, to Qingxi's surprise, he did not sense any hostility from Shibazu, and Shibazu did not seem to have any intention of fighting him. This is a little different from what he thought. He originally thought that after entering the space-time turbulence, he would have a fierce battle with Otsutsuki Shibai. You know, back then, Otsutsuki Shibai really did something to him. Lord Juju, what do you want to do by showing up now? Qingxi spoke calmly, without any emotion in his voice. Since he couldn't figure it out, he might as well just ask directly. After all, he is now the real god of Otsutsuki, who can suppress everything with a flip of his hand. Even if the opponent is Otsutsuki Shibai, who has also transcended the dimension, the ending will be the same. Hearing Qingxi's question, Otsutsuki Shibai fell silent, and his three different eyes flashed with various inexplicable lights, as if he was organizing his words. After a long time, just when Qingxi was getting a little impatient, Otsutsuki Shibai sent a soul message to Qingxi. For Otsutsuki Shibai, after he ascended to transcendence, he was trapped in the cracks of this endless time and space because only his soul was left, and he could not escape at all. Moreover, he is unable to influence various time and space through the cracks in time and space and the turbulence of time and space. Of course, if he was simply in the turbulence of time and space, he could still unleash some of his strength. Therefore, he placed his hope of escape on those who accidentally fell into the turbulence of time and space for various reasons. He plans to pass on his experience of cultivation in ascending and transcending to those who have strayed into the turbulence of time and space, hoping to cultivate a god who can help him. However, things went against his wishes. As time went by, Otsutsuki Shibai despairingly discovered that his incomplete state as the Otsutsuki god, with only a soul but no body, made it impossible for him to control his terrifying ability called omnipotence, which was further sublimated from his original bloodline network ability. Omnipotence was originally an ability to reconstruct reality based on the will of the practitioner, but it can only be effective on people other than the Otsutsuki clan. And when its bloodline network ability is further sublimated, it has the effect of influencing the Otsutsuki clan. Therefore, although omnipotence is only because Otsutsuki Shibai cannot control his own power, and it is constantly passively overflowing and venting outward in the turbulence of time and space, this still affects all those who accidentally enter the turbulence of time and space and are able to survive safely in the end, and then lose their memories. And this is the truth behind why Qingxi lost part of his memory after falling into the turbulence of time and space. Therefore, Otsutsuki Shibai's only hope is the emergence of a strong man who has truly reached the level of the Otsutsuki god through his own practice and has the ability to arbitrarily cross endless time and space to help him rebuild his body and escape. 10,000 years passed quickly, and finally, Otsutsuki Shibai saw the dawn of hope for escape. In the turbulence of time and space, he discovered an Otsutsuki who was affected by his omnipotence, but eventually broke through the effects of his omnipotence. This gave Otsutsuki Shibai hope. What surprised him even more was that this Otsutsuki who had broken through the influence of omnipotence used to travel through time and space was surprisingly the Otsutsuki noble phantasm, plow, which he had possessed before his ascension and which he eventually left behind in the ninja world. In other words, the ninja world, a nursery of the highest quality, is mostly under its control. This also means that the other party has the prerequisites to become the god of Otsutsuki. However, the only thing that made Otsutsuki Shibaui a little uneasy was whether the other party could truly become the god of Otsutsuki, and not be like him, neither high nor low, because the strength of the body could not match the strength of the soul. Not only did he fail to successfully ascend to godhood, but he also ended up being trapped in the cracks of endless time and space. As his hope of escaping, he desperately wanted to pass the information to the other party so that he would not take a detour and must push his physical strength to the limit of the 6 paths level before trying to ascend and transcend. However, when he discovered this glimmer of hope, it was already too late. The other party had already returned to the time and space where he originally was through the time and space channel constructed by the plow. And he was unable to use his power to influence the interior of space and time through the turbulence of space and time. Therefore, he could only pray continuously in hope, hoping that the other party could successfully use the chakra fruit of the ninja world to achieve a true transcendence that was different from what he had achieved before. Of course, Otsutsuki Shibai also knew that after the other party returned to the original time and space, even with the help provided by the ninja world, this top-notch nursery, it would probably take thousands of years to take the final step. After all, this is how he got here. He is very familiar with planting trees in the ninja world. But it's no problem, he can afford to wait. You know, he has already waited for tens of thousands of years, so it doesn't matter if he waits for another thousands of years. After all, the two sides are of the same clan, and they also have the incense of the noble phantasm, plow. I believe that after the other party becomes the god of Otsutsuki, he should be willing to help. However, what Otsutsuki Shibai never expected was that the other party would come so quickly. In just a dozen years when he took a nap, the other party successfully transcended as he wished and became the true god of Otsutsuki. After receiving the message from Otsutsuki Shibai and quickly reading it, a look of enlightenment appeared on Seiji's face. So, everything is connected. Immediately, he nodded slightly to Otsutsuki Shibai, but his attitude remained noncommittal. Of course, as to whether he should help his senior, Otsutsuki Shibai, Seiji's answer deep in his heart is still inclined to be yes. After all, endless time and space have endless possibilities, and there will also be new conflicts of interest. It goes without saying that there are not only powerful people at the level of the Otsutsuki god. Therefore, it was obvious that as a new god, he needed help. Although Kagaya can also use the chakra fruits produced in the ninja world to replicate his path to godhood and become another Otsutsuki god, the more helpers the better, such as Otsutsuki Shibai who is trapped and has not yet fully become the Otsutsuki god. However, having said that, after figuring out everything, Seiji did not directly help Otsutsuki Shibai to escape and recast the meat god. You know, he originally thought that he and Otsutsuki Shibai had a hostile relationship. Therefore, after ascending to godhood, he chose to go to the turbulence of time and space first to deal with this potential huge trouble. Now that he knows that Otsutsuki Shibai is not only not an enemy, but maybe a future helper, Seiji's actions are not so urgent. Anyway, Otsutsuki Shibai has been trapped for tens of thousands of years, so he probably won't care so much if we wait a little longer. After all, for Seiji, who is already the god of Otsutsuki, this is also a huge project that requires a lot of time and energy. Moreover, things that are obtained so easily are often not cherished. So, I'll go back to the ninja world to see my family first. They must be waiting anxiously by now. A soft look flashed in the corner of his eyes, and then Qingxi turned around, chuckled and took a step forward, and the time and space around him suddenly changed. Dash 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 dash. Ninja World, Kyoto, the ancestral country. The interior of Otsutsuki Castle, which was completed a few years ago. Qingxi's figure quietly emerged. After all, he had already reached the level of the Otsutsuki god. As long as he wanted, Theoretically no one in the ninja world could detect him. However, something that surprised him happened. Because his Kagaya, at this moment, seemed to have a telepathic connection with him, standing right in front of him, with arms open to welcome his return. Qingxi looked at the lovely girl in front of him steadily, then smiled gently, and quickly stepped forward and hugged Kagaya tightly, not separating for a long time. A few breaths later, with a bang, the gate of the courtyard was directly knocked open, and a delicate and pure little girl rushed in, shouting loudly, "Dad!" Behind him, there were Hara Shiki, Yukiko, and Zetsu Shiki. Open black lens bracket. The whole book is finished, close black lens bracket. After typing the last word and the last punctuation mark, and slowly typing the words, "End of book," I sat in front of the computer, stunned for a long time. Outside the window, the night sky is like a huge piece of black silk, quietly covering the earth. There are no stars in the dark night sky, only a thick layer of dark clouds. Just like the day I started writing last May, the drizzle gently tapped on the window, making a crisp and subtle sound, like the tears of the sky, sliding down drop by drop, looming in the night. The feeling of loss in my heart is indeed difficult to describe accurately in words. However, every story has its beginning and naturally its end, and Qingxi's story ends here. As for the sequel after becoming the god of Otsutsuki, of course it can be continued, but after all, the original intention was to write a Naruto fan fiction. If I write about other worldviews, it would actually have a bit of a wrong flavor and deviate from the topic. Therefore, I chose to end the whole story after becoming a god. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. For me, this book was actually just an idea that popped up suddenly at the beginning, and I didn't have the intention of writing it down in detail at the time. However, it was around April or May last year that my daily work suddenly became a lot easier than usual, and I had a lot more free time every night. So, with the mentality of giving it a try, I started writing, wanting to turn the story in my mind into concrete words and share it, and this book was born. However, after writing about hundreds of thousands of words, work suddenly became busy again. At that time, I would often get off work at 9 or 10 o'clock, and working overtime on weekends was commonplace. Therefore, for me, a part-time writer, it was difficult to maintain a stable update status. So, it took a total of 1 year and 3 months to write this book, and it finally reached 133.6 million words. Gee, this ninja journey spans 1 million words. Here, I would like to express my special thanks to every book friend who has been reading along. It makes me feel that there are always people walking side by side with me in this lonely creation. 1 million words is not actually short in Naruto fan fiction, but it is impossible to cover all the stories. What's more, the timeline of this book is much earlier than that of the original work. As a new author who is writing a book for the first time, I have to admit that some of the plots in this book are not perfect, and the character creation in the book can actually be further polished. Perhaps, there are also some harmful points that make some readers feel uncomfortable. But for me, I have indeed put my best efforts into every chapter. As I wrote in my own book review, no matter what, my first book will not be cut off or have a bad ending. During the entire creative process, I persisted to the end as promised and did not give up. Thank you for not leaving. Of course, I do want to apologize for the slower update frequency. I have been too busy with work in the past few months. Dash 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 dash. Thanks again to all the book friends who have been following me. The road ahead is long, so let's say goodbye Tilda. See you in the next book, on the next brand new journey Tilda. P.S. I haven't decided what to write in the next book yet, but I can be sure it won't be about Kirigakure. Perhaps, I might try to write a story about Konoha,